West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't understand why this is an issue.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, it's 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Also providing lots of rich content for Channel 9 to talk about yesterday's interview with Danielle Jurinsky. He doesn't even, I'm looking at it now, Kyle Clark doesn't even... give us any credit. Even 710 KNUS. He literally clipped the interview we did with Danielle Jurinsky and put it up and then puts next on the bottom of it.
You know, there's a thing where there's like an understanding of professionalism inside the industry that you don't all have to agree. You're not all rowing in the same direction. Yes, we can have different politics. We can even like different NFL teams. But there's sort of an honor in the business that if you are going to cite something that somebody else does, you give attribution.
If you're going to take like 2 minutes of it and then throw it up on your...
Well, the issue is this, is that one of the basic rules inside of journalism is attribution to a source. He took our stuff that we did here, and he's not giving us attribution. That's BS journalism. That's BS journalism. That's why we have the stupid T-shirts up. Go to kyleskarens.com and choose a side. This is ridiculous. You need to buy a red shirt today. This is stupid. This is dumb. I am personally offended by this. It's not. I mean, even when he just puts
Bill's going red shirt today.
The little, the white little letters in the corner.
Yeah.
710 KNUS. That's fine. Just attribution. I'm gonna have to go back and look at this thing because if there's no attribution there,
So yesterday, Danielle Jurinsky was on the show and she hit a grand slam home run. I mean, just laid into the Democrats that have put our state in a position with their sanctuary state policies, with their kind of weakness and playing around with the free Palestine from the river to the sea chants, all that stuff that I think Danielle Jurinsky rightly identified created a pathway in which you have a firebombing of Jews in Boulder, Colorado that took place on Sunday. So Danielle, a Jewish woman, angry at her fellow Democratic Jews who are putting the party first. And you saw it all in their statements, too, where it's like, we're actively monitoring the situation, condemning hate, all that stuff, as opposed to taking on the actual ideology that is leading to Jews fearing for their physical safety in the state of Colorado. So she comes on the show, just lays into him. That thing goes uber viral. Next picks it up and talks about leading Republicans blaming Democrats for the anti-Semitic terror in Boulder. Aurora City Councilwoman Danielle Jurinsky says Governor Jared Polis and state leaders are not really Jewish and belong to a demonic cult. And I went and posted links to donate to Danielle Jurinsky below his video. So
that's ridiculous.
Oh, Kyle. So providing all the content to run on the broadcast news later this evening. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show.
It'll be ahead of the curve. This is
we make the news, baby.
Yeah, I'm really upset about the whole thing. I'm going to go back and look at this thing because that ticks me off. I mean, at least attribution. It's one of the rules. Where'd you get the source? Where'd you get this from? I'm pissed. It's ridiculous.
He doesn't want to give us any clout because we're running kyleskarens.com.
Yeah, no, but how hard is it just to do your journalistic job? But again, I throw rocks at people not honoring the basic tenets of journalism all the time, and there we go.
Well,
That's what ticks me off.
you can get your Kyle's Karens t-shirts at kyleskarens.com, kyleskarens.com, and you can just imagine what he went through yesterday where he's going, oh, they have such a good interview. Oh, Danielle Jurinsky is just providing red meat.
Yeah.
But I
can't give them credit.
The guys with the Kyle's Karens t-shirts.
One thing we can't do is do our job and actually give attribution. That'd be silly. Don't prove the point of the shirts that we're printing. For God's sakes, don't do that.
By the way, you have till Friday to get your Kyle's Karens t-shirts.
Yeah.
You have till Friday.
Go check them out. We still have one blue one that has been ordered. I haven't broken. I don't know who wants to. I want to ask who ordered it because I can ask the people, but I don't think I should because I don't think that's fair. So it's one of those things that I think it'll just remain a mystery. But yeah, we've sold.
Kyle's mom.
I know someone's out there. I'm impressed if Kyle's mom found the website. I'm like, hey, all right, I appreciate that.
We'll do a push.
Yeah.
You know, if he's going to steal our content, maybe we'll just bombard his posts with some Kyle's Karens advertisements.
It's ridiculous.
All right, we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to give you the latest on what's happening in Boulder. Jeff Crank's going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. He had a very interesting post about the timeline of this firebomber from Egypt. Listen to this. In August of 2022, he obtains a visa. In February of 2023, the visa expires, and it was a travel visa, right? But by July of 2024, Colorado has issued him a driver's license. So instead of turning him over to ICE, Colorado lawmakers gave him a sanctuary pass. Jeff Crank's got some strong thoughts coming. He's going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. 8 o'clock hour, Lindsay Datko, Jeffco Students First, is going to join us because Jefferson County schools being investigated by the Trump administration. This was one of two big investigation announcements coming yesterday. We'll get the latest on that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then Bill and I are going to talk this crazy new AI development that's taking place where they can replicate sitcoms with entirely new episodes with characters that have since died. Like you could see entirely new episodes of Gilligan's Island. So don't miss that conversation in the 9 o'clock hour. We've got a lot ahead. Now is time for your 6 a.m. dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, 48 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 58 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
We still have 2 victims in the hospital. I believe those are the 2 that were flown to University Hospital in Aurora. I believe the victims, the additional victims that we learned of today, the reason we didn't know about them until today was their injuries, thankfully, were more minor in nature.
The terrorist in Boulder, in the Boulder attack, is getting hit with federal and state charges. But unlike him, they're not using a flamethrower, probably should. Boulder Police Chief Stephen Redfern.
Piecing together a timeline using video, license plate readers, all of those things, relying heavily on our federal partners. As of right now, I have not been made aware that we actually have video of him carrying anything into that area.
Mohammed Solomon is the dirtbag who used a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails, injuring 12 people, 2 of which remain hospitalized. And as we all know now, it was planned maybe a year in advance, and Solomon is being charged with a federal hate crime, 16 counts of attempted murder, which carries a life sentence. The 45-year-old Egyptian was once again in the country illegally. DJT on Truth Social this morning says a biological male competed in the California Girls State Finals. We talked about it yesterday, winning big, despite the fact that they were warned by me not to do so. As Governor Gavin Newsom, this is DJT talking, fully understands Large-scale fines will be imposed. Bring all the runner-ups, Mr. President, to the White House and give them all gold medals. That's what needs to happen now. Fake tapper with a Colorado angle in his book. I didn't even know about this one.
There's a senator, Senator Bennett from Colorado, who went to an event in June 2024 where Biden seemed non-functioning, and he left that event, and this is in the book, thinking this is why our border policy, our immigration policy is such a mess. This guy can't manage the portfolio. There are competing groups within the administration, and he's not engaged for whatever reason, and that's why this policy is such a mess.
Did I miss something? Did Bennett say anything about this at the time? Of course he didn't. Why didn't he speak out? I mean, my goodness, it took him that long. All these people are such frauds. Michael Bennett, it's just a joke when you hear fake tapper talk about this stuff. The Supreme Court won't hear challenges this term on bans on assault-style guns and high-capacity magazines. The High Court turned down 2 cases that challenge a Maryland law banning assault-style weapons and a Rhode Island restriction on magazines. From NBC News, families say they're leaving the U.S. because of its anti-transgender climate. One of the families said that they decided to move from Colorado to New Zealand after their 9-year-old trans daughter's health care was interrupted. A 9-year-old trans daughter. That is child abuse by these Colorado parents who moved to New Zealand. Enjoy New Zealand. The FBI, by the way, is now accepting reports on any physician mutilating minors with gender-affirming care.
That's wild. I mean,
it
understand that. They have an FBI tip line now if doctors are performing
yes.
gender-affirming care, and I put affirming in quotes,
yes,
if they're mutilating kids.
Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. Well, yeah, thank God.
Yeah,
it's just
I mean,
sick.
that
9
was,
years old, man.
That was something that I always saw as a massive liability. Like, if you're a doctor performing that,
right.
I mean, if anybody can sue on anything, you don't think 10 years from now, when they have lost body parts, they're not going to come back and sue you? They're going to sue you into the ground.
Exactly. Absolutely. Actor Jonathan Joss is dead. He was 59. Joss was known for playing the role of John Redcorn on the animated series King of the Hill. According to the San Antonio Police Department, Joss was killed on Sunday after reportedly getting into a heated argument with a neighbor. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com. The Rockies win 6-4 over the Marlins. First pitch today in South Florida at 4:40. 46 in Arvada, 47 in Aurora, 48 in Denver. And let's see, Jeff and Billy continue. Thought I had something. I don't have it. Doggone it. Oh, by the way, you're listening to 710. News Talk 710. KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area is a cool and damp one this Tuesday. We'll be looking at cloudy skies as well. Showers through the day, a possibility on and off with a few thunderstorms then this afternoon, this evening. Temperatures cooler than average, just near 60 today. Lows tonight near 50. Low 70s Wednesday into Thursday will be long on clouds and have additional shower and thunderstorm activity. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Yesterday, very busy as we covered the terrorist attack that took place, the firebombing of 12 Jews in Boulder, Colorado. So I want to catch up on some of the other news we weren't able to cover yesterday. This one was fascinating. Russia's Pearl Harbor. What to know about Ukraine's audacious drone strike. This comes from USA Today. Ukraine destroyed dozens of enemy bombers using a horde of drones smuggled deep into Russia in a stunning attack that Russia's war bloggers are calling Moscow's Pearl Harbor. It was the most damaging Ukraine attack on Russia in the 3 years since Moscow invaded. Ukraine intelligence said the coordinated strikes on June 1st took a $7 billion toll on Russia's military and demolished more than a third of Moscow's strategic cruise missile carriers, including planes capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Ukrainian President Zelensky called the massive attack, which he said used 117 drones, his country's longest-ranged operation. It had an absolutely brilliant outcome, Zelensky said. Russia has had a very tangible loss, and justifiably so. Kiev's ambassador to the United States called the attack a very successful defensive operation in Russia against Russian aircraft that on a daily basis bomb our hospitals and schools and kill our kids. Speaking at an event in Washington, D.C., the ambassador said it was the best example of how innovation can and should work in defense, with Ukraine set to meet Russia for U.S.-brokered peace talks amid aggressive Russian advances on the battlefield. The ambitious June 1st attack showed neither side is counting on a breakthrough in negotiations. What was wild about this, Bill, is that apparently these planes, these bombers, were like the ones that we used prior to the stealth bombers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think the B-52s?
Yeah, B-52s, like, yeah, some of their older stuff.
Right,
yeah.
Older stuff, but long-range capabilities, which Russia now doesn't have anymore. And this was part of the triad of nuclear defense. So ballistic missiles, airplanes, and submarines. And essentially, the airplanes were just taken out. So Russia suffering a pretty significant loss here. I've seen some experts weigh in about the fact that this could be really problematic for Putin.
Yeah, it could. And while the destruction may not necessarily be at the total level of what went on in Pearl Harbor, it does have the same impact because in order for Russia to replace this fleet, it's going to take time. And some of those planes aren't built anymore. And so there are, you can't get parts. And so repairs, you've got to manufacture new planes. This is a huge problem. And this, honestly, from what I'm reading about how this operation was done, this is going to be a movie. Now, it's not going to be right away.
Yeah, what have you seen?
In the next decade, this is something that went on. They're talking about planning for 18 months. So this is the thing to think about is that, remember when Zelensky was sitting in the Oval Office and Trump was berating him that he had no cards? Zelensky was playing his cards. This operation was going on then while he was being berated that he had nothing. There was no way he could fight back. So I think that's just an interesting piece of the puzzle in this one.
You don't think the U.S. knew that this attack was coming?
Nope, not at all. They didn't tell us. No, we've confirmed that. They did not tell us because we were afraid. They were afraid that we would spill it to Putin. They were afraid. They did not tell us. We had no clue this was coming. We were in the dark. They did not share. So we had no clue on this one. And I think that, again, that's a testament to them being buttoned up, that they can work with us so closely on a level and still keep this thing hidden. The idea is they took several semi-trailers and smuggled them into Russia, and then brought them near the airfields and the places of the attack. And there were timers on the inside, and there were a bunch of drone operators inside of Ukraine. And there were some relays that had to be set up and some other stuff. But at the time, the top of the back of the semi-trailers opened up. Not the sides, not anything else. It was the tops that opened up, and all the drones flew out and then went on their missions. And that's how they were able to get in underneath security, underneath radar. The other thing that is super, super, super scary that the U.S. should be looking at is this was fairly low tech, and it worked brilliantly. So it's not a matter of when we go into our next military conflict. It's not necessarily always going to be a matter of who has the most technologically advanced tanks or bombers or missiles. It might come down to, in some areas, who can use a drone you can buy at Walmart most effectively. That's kind of spooky about what that does to the balance of power. This one's interesting. But yeah, Putin is in a tight at this point because he's going to have to replace this stuff. And most importantly, what I appreciate on this is Ukraine went after the planes that Putin was using to launch missiles into the country and to launch those rockets. They went after the ability for Russia to strike inside of Ukraine. That's incredibly smart. This thing will be made into a movie. This thing will be made into a movie in the next decade.
What are you anticipating Russia to do?
They're gonna rattle their saber. They're gonna be angry. They're gonna try to see what they can do. They may use some of their more expensive missiles and launch them into Ukraine. They're gonna try to get a little payback. But the one thing I don't think they're gonna do is come to the negotiating table because they're gonna want retribution for this. In fact, I saw floated recently that coming out of Moscow, their proposal for a settlement in Ukraine is in part to give them more territory than they already possess. That was part of what they wanted. Is like, give us more than what we've captured. What? Hang on here. So they're not being serious.
So
Russia's not serious.
I understand the critique that Russia's not being serious in wanting to achieve peace, right? Because even prior to that, they wanted all the land that they've already taken.
Yep.
So, and we've critiqued Russia on the show for having outlandish expectations in order to achieve peace. Well, can you say now the same thing about Ukraine?
That what?
With their response, this drone attack on the bombers, that they're not interested in achieving peace?
No, not at all. Ukraine would take peace. And here's the reason why, is remember this, and this is part of the functionality of this conflict. If Russia stops fighting, the war is over. If Ukraine stops fighting, there's no more Ukraine. So this is not about Ukraine's not the aggressor. This is defensive. This is Ukraine trying to keep Russia from hitting them. Russia is the one that is the aggressor. That if Russia came to the table tomorrow and said, we want to stop this, we want to fight an end, Ukraine would do it. That's absolutely, and we've seen that. Zelensky wants an end to this, but he's not going to take an end that, in one, allows Russia major control of his country, or two, has to give up a lot of territory, and that's something we're going to have to work through. Why would you give up your territory? I mean, if you had an argument with your neighbor and they came over and knocked down your fence, and they started setting up a barbecue and doing other things in part of your backyard, and the police came over and the police said, well, you're just going to have to let them have that part of your backyard. How happy would you be about that? Now, if they went back into their own backyard, you may still have aggression and you still be angry with them, but you're not going to go into their backyard and start doing stuff. But if you're going to, but you would maybe, if they set up the barbecue in your backyard, go into their backyard and cut the gas lines so their barbecue doesn't work. That may be something you did so that what they're doing in your territory doesn't work. That's kind of what you're looking at. And so that's the idea, is how much would you allow your neighbor to take over your backyard? That's what, that's in some ways what Ukraine's looking at this point. So, yeah, if Russia stops fighting, war is over. Ukraine stops fighting, no more Ukraine.
Bannon and his allies speculating the Trump administration had given tacit approval to this. Jack Posobiec saying there's no way that our intelligence services could not have known about this. We've had intelligence services that have been on the ground, as we know, prior to the war, that are directly direct embeds with Ukrainian intelligence services and Ukrainian security services. Where does this go from here in your mind? Are we pushing Putin towards actually having to negotiate peace at this point? Or are you pushing him into a corner? Bannon yesterday on War Room saying that that the Ukraine strikes risks escalating war, could go pushing Russia all the way into World War III. Give us a call. We'd love to hear from you. 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Steve Bannon saying that this was comparison to the Pearl Harbor attacks. This was a sneak attack on the eve of peaceful talks. Ukraine engaged in a sneak attack. Would love to hear from you. Give us a call. Let's talk advanced hair restoration, guys. If you're losing your hair, you need a simple solution that works. You want the best modern technology with top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration from the experience itself to their unmatched results. You got receding hairline, bald spot, or thinning hair? Address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments. And get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. Look, it all starts with your free consultation. Give them a call. Here's the phone number, 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. So refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration. 720-459-HAIR, advancedhair.com, advancedhair.com. Lots of text messages coming in, phone calls starting to light up. We'll continue the conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Ukraine launching what's been called Russia's Pearl Harbor, attacking its fleet of bombers and destroying a good portion of them. Estimates in the realm of $7 billion toll on Russia's military. Now, if you remember, Trump was saying recently that Russia was playing with fire by not being willing to negotiate. And then a few days later, this attack comes. I was looking at Trump's Truth Social. I don't see any comment on Truth Social. Has Trump made any comment about this yet?
I haven't seen anything, but I don't pay attention to 100% of what he's, I guess you'd say truthing. God, that's a weird word. But yeah, I'd pay attention to it. I didn't see anything as far as a comment. And, I know there are implications that we probably had hints of something going on, but I know that according to reporting that they did not tell us directly and say, this is what we're doing, this is when we're doing it, this is how we're doing it. None of that information was conveyed. And I think this is wonderful because, again, Putin is the aggressor. And I understand Steve Bannon is saying, oh, you're pushing Putin into a corner, you're pushing Putin into a corner. Isn't that what Reagan did? Isn't that what Reagan did in order to, bring down the Soviet Empire? Yes, they pushed him into a corner, and then they degraded his ability to wage war. It's exactly what's happening right now. It worries me to have people like Steve Bannon and others seem to be giving grace and openness towards the position of Vladimir Putin. It shocks me, especially coming out of the party of Reagan.
But here's what I hear from proponents of these attacks is that Vladimir Putin's evil, Vladimir Putin's crazy, he's insane, he's paranoid, and then we pushed him into a corner, and the dude has nukes.
Yeah.
So I at least get the concern that we don't want to end up in World War III over Ukraine, because I don't want to send my sons or daughters to go die for this war. I have no interest in doing that. So how do you achieve peace with a madman, with someone who's crazy, who owns nuclear weapons, and now we've taken away 1/3 of the nuclear triad that Russia has? I mean, I guess we just hope that he doesn't respond with nukes, but I at least get the concern that we don't want to end up in World War III.
Well, here's the thing is I understand the idea of not wanting to send American men and women over there, but I firmly believe that the idea of this specter of nuclear war on the horizon is nothing more than an invention of anxiety and partial hangover from the Cold War. And the reason why is what was the reason that we've come to some of these nuclear treaties, and the reason you've had some of the demolishment of some of the delivery systems and other things is because of MAD, mutually assured destruction. That's what keeps the nuclear weapons in check. They are now not an offensive weapon, but a defensive weapon. If you don't want people to invade you with conventional means, then you get a nuclear weapon to keep them outside of your borders. That's how they're used right now in geopolitics. And as long as we have mutually assured destruction, a nuclear weapon is not an offensive weapon, except by breakaway splinter groups like terrorists. Those people don't care because they're not necessarily moored to a specific ideology or even a specific country. So that idea of mutually assured destruction doesn't matter anymore. But with Russia, Russia's not going to launch a nuclear weapon. I would be incredibly
You don't think so?
shocked.
That was going to be my next question.
No way in hell. No way in hell. Yeah.
I mean, we just took out $7 billion, or not we, but Ukraine, but we're essentially funding Ukraine.
Yeah.
So the West knocked out $7 billion of Putin's airplanes. What does he do to respond?
He's going to try to increase the kinetic response. He's going to launch more missiles. He's going to try and get more bombers. He's going to try to get more troops on the ground. He's going to try to get more artillery. That's where I would look. He's going to look for, and again, it's going to be a cost-benefit analysis for him, because artillery is probably the most efficient, but also you have to get it close to where you want to fire from. If you can shoot missiles. Yeah, that's great, but those are expensive, especially the ones that he'd need to use at this point. So how much more money does he want to put into this? Russia has got incredible inflation right now, and he is spending a significant portion of the nation's GDP on this war. So Russia's not getting rich. In fact, he's harming the economy based on this, but he's also invested in this. He has sold this as a war of liberation and expansion and for Russian pride to the people of Russia. So he can't back away and be the loser. He does need a way to save face, which I believe is the one card that we really have in this one. But no, the mutually assured destruction makes nuclear weapons no longer palatable, because as soon as he launches one, even if it's a tactical nuke into a portion of Ukraine, there's a couple of problems with that. One being he now becomes a pariah, and the chance for response from other nuclear nations is significant. The other problem is this: radiation moves through the air, and it would be incredibly stupid to launch a nuclear attack on your border when much of the radiation can blow back into your own country. So some of the fallout and everything else is going to affect your own people. So that's going to be a problem, and that's something that, whether or not he agrees or disagrees with what's going to happen with the radiation, that's medical stuff that he's going to have to deal with in his own country. So it's not going to happen. In fact, this is going to be really weird here, but I'm going to take this tangent just for a moment. That's part of the problem with Trump's idea behind the Golden Dome, is it takes away mutually assured destruction. If you want to kick off another arms race, if you want to kick off something like that again, and I'm worried about that because of where our budget is and the fact that we have such a large debt right now, to get into another arms race is going to put an incredible tax and strain upon the American economy. But if he goes ahead with his Golden Dome, that's exactly what happens.
Help me understand the problem with taking away mutually assured destruction. I mean, at this point, wouldn't you just want to downgrade your nuclear arsenal? Because if we develop a Golden Dome, eventually somebody else will develop a Golden Dome. So it doesn't matter if you shoot 1 or 100 of them.
Yeah, so
they'll all get shot down.
I know. So what do you have to do? In order to maintain that security and that defensive posture, even offensive posture, you need what? New weapons. If the Golden Dome makes nuclear missiles and other weapons irrelevant and obsolete, you now need new weapons. And so that's going to be a new arms race, because
isn't that just progress? I mean, hasn't all of humanity moved towards new weapons?
In some ways, yes, but it kicks off an arms race because it takes away the idea of mutually assured destruction. We do have a bit of an arms race, but not nearly on the levels we had during the 80s. But as soon as you take away the idea of mutually assured destruction, as soon as Russia or anybody else doesn't have that card on the table that, hey, I know that America or anybody else isn't going to launch nuclear weapons at me because it is mutually assured destruction. As soon as America can launch their nuclear weapons and not be destroyed, that changes the game. Now everybody else needs to get new ways to attack, and that kicks off an arms race because now we need to defend ourselves.
What would that look like? I think we're heading that way anyways. I think all of military fighting is just going to be us throwing drones at each other.
Yeah, it could be, but the issue for me is that I understand we're going that way, but the arms race is something different because of what I experienced in the 80s and through some of the 90s is this race and this constant spend. And that's what I'm worried about, is we get into another arms race. You think our debt is a problem now? Oh, yeah, because remember, as soon as I start talking about increasing defense spending, if you start talking about fiscal responsibility, why do you want everybody to die in America? I
guess I just don't know what that weapon looks like. It seems like what happened with Ukraine, for instance, was low-tech drones, right? What I see warfare going in the next 10 years is just throw like thousands of drones at your opponent with the hopes that some get through, like what happened with Ukraine against Russia. And that doesn't seem that expensive to me. So what kind of weapons do you think are going to be developed?
I don't know. But the issue being that is as soon as you take those nuclear weapons off the table, as soon as one side knows that their weapons are no longer effective, that kicks off the arms race. And that's going to be a problem. And so I don't think that we're thinking this one all the way through, that as soon as you take mutually assured destruction off the table, our opponents have to start an arms race. They have to figure out a way, because otherwise we can do whatever we want. We can walk around and rattle our saber and say, we can launch nukes at you anytime we want because you can't hit us back. and that's a problem for them. And there it kicks off the arms race. So that's going to be an issue. But no, there's no way that Putin is going to use a nuclear weapon, especially so close to his borders. That would be like us dropping a nuclear bomb just on the other side, like in Tijuana. You know that all the fallout's going to blow back into San Diego. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because you're going to make your own people sick.
So many.
Oh, I know, but the issue is it's just too close. It doesn't make any sense tactically to drop a nuclear weapon so close to your own population because you know what's going to happen based on the fallout. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm restraining myself. You opened the door for some funny
I know.
ones.
Yes, for Tijuana. I know. That's why I went there. Because it could clean the place up. Yes.
Rob in Tennessee. Destroying or damaging some of Putin's nuclear triad bombers does not take away the nuclear triad. It means he has to adjust how they're used. I've seen nothing substantiating Ukraine's claim of total destruction of the bombers at these bases. All the videos I've been able to find show about 4 of the Tu-95s, an AN-50, and no Tu-22s. It was an effective raid and an embarrassment for Putin, but not a crippling raid on his bomber force.
Yeah, he still has ability, but it's
Rob in Tennessee.
Yeah, but it's constrained, and the other part is it's expensive to rebuild. That was the problem with Pearl Harbor for the U.S. is that we had to rebuild in order to get back up to where we were. So that's the real issue. He does have the ability, but it vastly constrains the ability. They're saying somewhere around 40 planes or so hit. But again, even if they're not totally destroyed, it still repairs. So it's going to take time for him to get back up to where he was.
I said this last week when we were discussing this. I think Putin had a window in which Trump was friendly to him.
Yeah.
But as I've said before, you can quickly become Trump's enemy. I mean, anybody in the Republican Party knows this.
Yeah.
Leonard Leo knows this. The guy who built all the judges for Trump's first term is now I forget the term he referred to him, a loser or something like that. But you can quickly become Trump's enemy. I don't think Putin wants to do that. And I think that Putin's running out of Trump's window of opportunity here. So I'll be interested to see how he responds. And I want to see how the president responds because I haven't seen anything yet. This happened 48 hours ago at least. And so far, nothing from the president. All right, let's talk Memorial Day savings. Yes, I know Memorial Day was 2 weekends ago, but our friends over at Mountain High Appliance are continuing with the savings. You have until tomorrow, okay, to get up to $3,800 off on stunning cafe appliances featuring customizable hardware and bold show-stopping finishes. All of this at Mountain High Appliance. Take advantage of these limited-time offers ending tomorrow. When you think appliances, think locally owned. Mountain High Appliance, $3,800 off stunning cafe appliances. That's awesome. Take advantage of that, guys. All right, we got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, it's that time of the morning. We give you a little levity, especially on a rainy Tuesday morning. Hopefully this could get you going today. Some You Choose the News.
Yes, we're going to lean into the more bizarre things that us humans do. Shout out if you recognize the reference to the song there. Alrighty. Yes, this is America's favorite fake radio news game show. You Choose the News. I've scoured the interwebs for moments this morning to find really dumb stories about us humans, and then given them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why, oh, why would we be this irresponsible with valuable KNUS airtime? Well, it's because Jeff and I are left unsupervised this early in the morning.
And we know we're providing good content for Kyle Clark later.
Exactly. What would Kyle do on his show in the afternoon if he wasn't listening here? Inquiring minds want to know. Alrighty. Here's what our stories are today. Blake Olson is always joining us from the newsroom. Gentlemen, your headlines. Headline number 1. Want to buy your stolen stuff? Headline number 2, space ties. Headline number 3, pss, 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 pss. And headline number 4, AI marketing. Mr. Hunt.
Start with space ties.
Yes, space ties. In a world first, there's going to be a brand new dish going to be served to NASA astronauts coming up. The Axiom Mission 4 is set to launch from Florida on the 9th of June, and they are going to make a historic journey with Thai chicken into the cosmos. Cosmos.
Nice.
Yes. The upcoming mission is going to see the astronauts from various nations travel to the International Space Station. All the food served aboard the spacecraft must undergo stringent certification processes in order to ensure its quality, safety, nutritional value, suitability for storage, and consumption when you're floating around in space. So Thai chicken in space has been approved. And in fact, because this is such a big deal, they're going to have a national viewing of the launch in Thailand on June 9th.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Now, Thailand does have is the world's leading chicken meat exporter. Over 900,000 tons of processed chicken is shipped to markets across Europe, Japan, and the Middle East just in 2024. So, yeah, Thai chicken now available, in space.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
That's
They're
my
gonna have to
favorite
tie it down up
backpacking
there.
dinner, by the way.
It's wonderful.
With the frozen or the dehydrated meals you got.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Thai chicken.
Thai
Actually
chicken's
turns
fantastic.
good. Yeah.
Alrighty. Now, Blake Olson, your choice, sir. Want to buy your stolen stuff or AI marketing?
Oh, man, I'm afraid to do this because I know your mind.
Yes. Here we are going to find ourselves in Ken Carl, Colorado. Yes, just up the road. Recently, deputies were called to a Jefferson County home because there was danger inside. A putty tat. Yes, a kitty cat had wandered in from outside. No, not the usual house cat. This was a bobcat. Wandered into the home's living room, cozied up on a high shelf. Well, when the deputies from Jefferson County arrived, they go, can I use my laser pointer? Is a cat a cat? Can I, put the dot on the ground and zoom it around and see if the kitty would chase it outside? Well, no, you can't. It didn't work. The deputies thought, well, cats are all the same, aren't they? No, they're not. No, they're not at all. The bobcat completely and totally ignored the laser pointer. And in fact, the Jefferson County deputies just told the homeowner, leave the back door open, same way the bobcat got in. It'll probably leave. And yes, it did. Yes.
It did?
Yeah, it did. But
Did you get lunch?
No, didn't eat dinner. No, nothing at all. The thing, though, is that I was really intrigued by the story because if that laser pointer worked, imagine you're out in a safari or something like that, lions stalking you, and you're like, hey, look at a laser pointer. However, it would make trips to the zoo really, really difficult, but it would have been fun. Just saying, it would have been a lot of fun to play with.
Absolutely.
Could have, but I know. Okay, Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir. Want to buy your stolen stuff or AI marketing?
AI marketing, please.
AI marketing. After a $1.5 billion investment, a company backed by Microsoft is now shutting down.
Oh, man.
It was on the cutting edge of artificial intelligence. Natasha, an AI app building service from a London-based builder.ai, claimed to have the ability to use artificial intelligence to help you create applications. Coming up with app designs, writing code, Natasha was pumping out programs in record time. This is incredible for artificial intelligence, except it was functioning without the artificial part of it. It's been revealed that it actually was a workforce of over 700 human Indian engineers. Yes, people just in India, just like the customer service. Hello, customer service. Same thing. 700 engineers in India were actually doing all the coding, all the other work, but the company was representing it as a breakthrough in artificial intelligence. Yes, the company had a valuation of $1.5 billion, but it turns out they weren't actually investing it in technology. They were paying people's salaries. Yes. Now, employees said the majority of the labor was actually produced by the humans. They did use some artificial intelligence, but that was only for clerical work done by basic general software you can probably buy at places like Micro Center. The farce has lasted for 8 years.
Wow.
Until recently getting exposed by an intrepid reporter doing actual journalism and citing his sources, unlike Kyle Clark over at the other station doing stuff. I had to close the circle there. That's it. All righty, gentlemen, that is it. That is the end of You Choose the News. Enough of the frivolity. Let's get back to the regularly scheduled part of the program.
Well, that was great, Bill. Thank you so much. Love You Choose the News. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour, Jeff Crank's going to join us, giving us the latest update on this terrorist attack that took place in Boulder. Not going to want to miss that. In the 8 o'clock hour, Lindsay Dotko, Jeffco Kids First. Trump administration launching an investigation into Jefferson County schools. We got it all for you. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Well, it's 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, we'll be joined by Jeff Crank, Congressman from Congressional District 5. Talking about the latest we're seeing coming out of this Boulder terrorist attack. This firebombing of 12 Jewish Israel supporters that took place on Sunday. What are we learning about the perpetrator of this crime? And what did Colorado do to facilitate him living here? It's a sanctuary state. Jeff Crank with some interesting new information you're not going to want to miss. He comes up after news and comment with Blake Olson. In the 8 o'clock hour, Donald Trump launching a Title IX investigation against Jefferson County schools about their requirements allowing biological males to spend the night in girls' dorms on these sleepaways that schools go on. Is this a violation of Title IX, of the rights and protections of young ladies as well? Well, Donald Trump, with Linda McMahon as Secretary of Education, launching an investigation into this. We'll get to that in the 8 o'clock hour. And then the use of AI to create new sitcoms, like brand new storylines with actors that are no longer alive. Bringing back Gilligan's Island, for instance. This is crazy. The entire industry is changing. Bill, I don't know if you saw this, but Disney laying off a whole bunch of people yesterday.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, and reality television down 60%. Now, you may find this interesting, but one of my buddies growing up is the producer of Jersey Shore.
My apologies.
And he is on his 17th season with them.
That, again, yeah, I've seen that. And, it's funny. My son and I were watching something the other day, and the ad came up for some sort of new thing with Jersey Shore. And he watched it a lot more than I did when he was younger.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was like, there's still? I'm like, how is this still a thing?
Dude,
and
that train chugs along,
it does.
Man.
And what he and I were talking about, I said, it was funny seeing them in early 20s doing the same thing, but holding to the same, gym, tan, party type lifestyle
in their 40s?
Yes, you're like, we're bordering on some poor life choices at this point. I mean, this has become kind of a celebration of youth into a cautionary tale of adulthood. This is a really weird evolution of where they are.
If you can make $1 million a season, I don't know how much they make, but
I have no idea, but still.
Make $1 million a season by acting the fool.
Oh, hell yeah.
You probably do the same. I would ride that train 17 years going.
Absolutely.
But yeah, other reality shows down 60%. And now everything's going to go AI, and the studios are just going to rely on computers to develop stories now.
I love this because think about it this way. We went from, coming up with an idea for a show and writing a story and then creating characters that are understandable and that emotionally resonate with the audience is hard, and finding particular actors and actresses and paying them portray those. They've been trying this craft for years. They've been trained to do this. Finding the right people for those roles, that's hard. It is so much easier to do a pseudo-reality TV show, have it partially scripted, and have people that have never been on TV before and just see what happens and then set up some car crashes and people watch it because it's in part less expensive and easier to produce. So when that money train starts drying up, the studios don't go, oh, maybe we should go back to writing this. No. They're like, let's go make it cheaper.
Yes.
Let's find a way that we can do this.
Let's type in.
Yes. Let's find a way that just Ron the intern can type something into the computer, and then AI will generate something, and then we'll all make money off of it.
But in many ways, this is how Hollywood's always been, right?
Yes.
Star Wars, they've milked that cow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Until it's dry.
They have.
But I remember
Disney
watching...
coming back with all the live action stuff. I mean, you got live action, Lilo and Stitch. I mean, yes, exactly.
And, oh, gosh, what was it that... it just fell out of my... Walking Dead.
Oh, yeah.
We would watch Walking Dead, and then you would just realize at a certain point, every television show does this, where they realize they can have the characters do nothing of quality and still get ad revenue out of it. And so the train just chugs along
keeps
with
going.
no actual storyline development.
Yeah, no storyline
Like,
at all.
I remember we would get a few seasons into The Walking Dead, and you're like, that nothing happened this season.
No, all they're doing is just run from the zombies. That's basically it. That's the entire theme. It's just, let's run from the zombies. Yeah, and that's funny. In fact, I'm surprised there is somewhat of a storyline now. I have not seen the new Lilo and Stitch movie. I'm just going to take us in a different direction for a sec. But I'm reading online, and I'm going to have to get in the theaters to see this thing with the kids of mine that enjoy it, because I want to see if this storyline is true. I have read online that they've changed the end of Lilo and Stitch, and they've done it in a way that basically tears apart the entire foundation of the original.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was seeing from people online asking, did the person that wrote the live action adaptation ever see the first movie and reflect on it? Because it goes 180 degrees away from where the first one ends.
And those 90s years for Disney were so good. Little Mermaid, Lion King, all that. So yeah. And now they don't even have story coherence.
Yeah, not at all. This one, if you were a Lilo and Stitch fan, think about how that movie ends. They go completely in the opposite direction, which breaks apart the premise of the entire movie. I want to see if it's real or not, so I'm not going to really jump on Disney and beat the crap out of them until I see it in the theater. But if this is true, I'm going to be pissed, because it's just like, you guys don't understand what this movie is all about. You missed the entire theme of the original story if they end it the way that they say they do. Yeah. So we'll see.
Interesting. All right. We've got lots to talk about. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, if you'd like to join the conversation, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You know you've been waiting for it. Now is time for your morning 7 a.m. dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Tuesday morning, 48 and rainy in Denver, expecting a high of 58 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
A Holocaust survivor was burned yesterday. Burned. Survived the Holocaust and burned. And they're closely monitoring the situation. Shame on you.
Aurora Councilwoman at Large Danielle Jurinsky on with Jeff and Billy, of course, on Monday, ripping Governor Polis. A group of Jewish state lawmakers asking allies to speak out against anti-Semitism following Sunday's attack in Boulder. 6 members of the legislature issued a statement Monday saying the rising tide of anti-Semitic attacks threatens the fabric of what makes America worth believing in. It also urged people to confront hate forcefully before it becomes normalized. Sunday's attack injured a dozen people, taking part in a weekly march calling for the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas, of course. The suspect yelled, "Free Palestine," during the attack, and he was here illegally. He's been here for 3 years. He planned it for a year. Sanctuary cities and states don't help to prevent terrorism either, by the way.
And now, 3 years later, after coming to this country under Joe Biden's administration, he is lighting Jewish people on fire.
Caroline Levitt on Monday. A Jewish organization is trying to raise money for the people injured. Jewish Colorado announced the creation of the Boulder Security Fund. The group hopes to raise $160,000 in addition to offering direct victim support. The fund will help pay for enhanced security for Jewish institutions and events and trauma counseling for those affected. The left is filled with freaks and anti-American sentiment, of course, as most of us know. Legendary playwright David Mamet on Fox News compares Dems to pedophiles.
And everything in the Democrats' playbook is denial, which takes all of a person's mental energy. It's no different than a dysfunctional family. If you have a family and dad is a pedophile, the problem is not that dad is a pedophile, but the problem for everyone in the family is they have to deny that dad is a pedophile, because if they face it, the family as they know it is going to fall apart and they don't know what comes next. That's horrific. It's legitimate, but it's horrific.
Yep.
That's where the Democrats are now.
Yes, it is. I interrupted him about 3 times. The mainstream media, as we know, is over 90% lefties, probably more, maybe 95, 99, who knows. And F. Chuck Todd out there again saying it wasn't the media's fault that no one reported on Sniffin' Joe.
There's almost an eagerness to blame the press without looking at actual who should be blamed here, and it's the leadership and, frankly, the members of the Biden administration and the leadership of the Democratic Party, who they're the ones that lied. Look, at the end of the day, no journalist is as good as their sources. At the end of the day, the Democratic Party lied to the American people. The leadership of the party lied to the American people. And that's where this scandal should be centered.
On with Piers Morgan.
Oh, my gosh.
Can you believe that, dude?
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. We know you're all in the tank. You're so far in the tank for the Democrat Party, you're wearing a scuba suit, okay? The media and there's no division. There's no, gosh, we should have held the Democrat Party. You are the Democrat Party.
Yes.
Golly.
The propaganda arm. Unbelievable. And I mean, I thought it would end with fake Tapper, but it's continuing with F. Chuck Todd.
Nobody watches these guys. They're all watching their careers crumble right now.
That is true.
Because there's so much distrust with them. And they absolutely did it to themselves. I we can go back. I continue to throw out these videos of Kyle Clark, for instance, saying, don't question the government with regards to COVID. It's like questioning firefighters showing up to your house. The guy was so far in the tank for pushing the government agenda on COVID. Yeah. And then when the vaccine came out, he's shaming people, saying you should be humiliated if you don't get your vaccination.
Yeah.
And then they're shocked no one trusts him anymore.
Hey, you wanted another. Why don't you just? Here's what I'll do. Instead of saying 9 News or KUSA, since they don't want to attribute you guys, let's just call them KBTV. I'm old enough to remember KBTV.
You're not old enough, Joe.
Yeah, KBTV was their former call letters. So. And it was combined.
Was that prior to the Olympics? Because my dad always talks about how they got the Olympics in like 80-something, and then everybody moved over to start watching Channel 9. Like that was the big change.
I think that was. Yeah, it was, when did that happen? I think mid-90s. I'm sure I know there's a bunch of 9 Newsers out there listening right now. They know.
Oh, yeah.
Some old school guys. They know KBTV was on Bannock Street, and that was the old KUSA. So just say, attribute it to KBTV instead.
Yeah, unless we forget to Channel 9 shot a guy in broad daylight.
Yeah, what about that?
The security guard they hired shot a guy in broad daylight, and nobody went to jail over it.
Oh, man.
And they're like, wait, why doesn't anyone trust us anymore?
I love it. All right, the Rockies win 6-4 over the Marlins. First pitch today, 4:40, 45 in Lakewood, 47 in Parker, 48 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
We now know we have a problem. And I don't think we can go and solve the problem or address the problem by acting like we bros in some pool hall.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your KNUS forecast for the Denver metro area is a cool and damp one this Tuesday. We'll be looking at cloudy skies as well. Showers through the day, a possibility on and off with a few thunderstorms then this afternoon, this evening. Temperatures cooler than average, just near 60 today. Lows tonight near 50. Low 70s Wednesday into Thursday will be long on clouds and have additional shower and thunderstorm activity. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free, no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Always glad to have him joining us. Great friend of the show, doing wonderful work down in Congressional District 5. That's the Colorado Springs area. Representative Jeff Crank joining us. Good morning, Representative.
Well, good morning, Jeff and Bill. How are you guys today?
Doing good.
You know, like you, we're still reeling from what happened, the attack in Boulder on Sunday. You have some interesting insight into the attacker yesterday, posting that Colorado issued a driver's license to this guy even after they knew he was an illegal alien. Talk to us about that.
Well, yeah, sure. I don't know if they knew he was an illegal alien because I'm not sure they checked, right? But yeah, that's from what I'm hearing from sources that I really do trust, that he obtained his initial visa in August of 22, and that visa expired in February of 23, but he was issued a Colorado driver's license in July of 2024. So it's unbelievable and it's shocking, but that's what's happened here in the state of Colorado.
Representative, we got a bit of a rough connection. I'm going to have Bill recall you back and see if we can improve that connection. Stand by. In the meantime, let me tell you about Dan Caplis with Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis, the son of a police officer and a former seminarian, has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law, a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551 or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S Law.com. We'll try again. Representative Jeff Crank, are you on the line with us?
I am. Is that any better?
Oh, 100% better. That is great. All right. So you posted yesterday new information from trusted sources on the Boulder attacker accused terrorist Mohammed Sabre Solomon. And you lay out a timeline here. On August of 2022, he obtained a visa. By February of 2023, the visa expired. But then nearly a year and a half later, in July of 2024, Colorado issued a driver's license to him. Give us some insight on that.
Well, I mean, first of all, this is the information I'm getting from people that I trust, sources that I trust very much. And I guess it's shocking to us when we hear it because we're looking back now and seeing what a monster this person was. But I don't know, should it shock us when we just purposefully hand out and we say, as a state, the state of Colorado says they don't care if someone's here legally or illegally, they're going to issue driver's license. This is a total breakdown of the rule of law. And, I guess it shouldn't shock us, but it definitely does.
And they actually reduced the time you have to be here in the state in order to get that driver's license. So not only do you not have to be a resident, you used to have to, I think, spend at least a year here in Colorado in order to get a driver's license. And just this last legislative session took that away. So I think you can just show up and get a driver's license now in Colorado.
Yeah, I think you can. If this doesn't concern anyone, I know in the government it certainly concerns me, and I think it concerns most citizens of Colorado. And I'm anxious to look. I'm looking more into this. I'm trying to find out if he was registered to vote. I don't know that. I think initially I don't think he was, but I am going to continue to look into that. And of course, if he was, gosh, did he cast a ballot? But we'll see. I don't know about that. But I'm also looking into seeing, did he have contacts with law enforcement? And, interestingly, if he did, could he have been stopped if we still allowed law enforcement to talk to ICE? Right now, law enforcement right now can send over a list, although this new law, we're going to see how this clamps down on it. But just a year ago or so, law enforcement could talk to someone and say at ICE and say, here's who's in our jail. But they couldn't call someone and say, hey, we just pulled over this person. He's suspected of being illegal because, whatever reason. That's been something that they can't do now, but they could have done, 3 years ago, before the governor signed a law that didn't allow that. So what if there were contacts with law enforcement? Again, I'm looking into it to see if there were. I don't know that there were, but if there were contacts there, could that have prevented it? This is the problem when you try and pass laws and you don't think through what's going to happen, right? I mean, we know that he tried to get a firearm and he was denied because he filled out the form and they checked and he wasn't a citizen. So both the FBI and CBI knew that he was here and he knew, I believe, that he wasn't at that time. Now I'm checking on that too, but I think that's true. That was in November of 2024. So this whole thing goes to show you when governments don't work together, how the system falls apart.
That's exactly right. That's Representative Jeff Crank from the Colorado Springs area. We're talking about the Boulder terrorist attack. He had been allegedly planning the attack for a year and was blocked from buying a gun. He initially wanted to shoot Jews with a gun, but because he was an illegal alien, at least that was stopped. So this brings up a bigger question. How many illegal aliens are trying to buy guns? I mean, Jeff, I'll admit, I probably hadn't even thought of that. And it's something that I think needs to be addressed. And I think the president probably wants to know that too. How many illegal aliens out there are trying to buy guns? And why are they trying to buy guns, right?
Right. And we should have that at our fingertips, right? Because they ask that question, are you a citizen of the United States and are you here legally? That's asked on the form that you fill out, a background check form. So that information should be readily available. How many times did that happen over the last couple of years? I mean, that's something we need to know for sure.
Well, and these sanctuary state policies, these sanctuary city policies are creating cracks. And when you create cracks, people fall through, and yet it might just be one guy. But talk to the 12 people that were burned on Sunday if it mattered that the one guy fell through this crack. He was living in a sanctuary state. Jared Polis claiming, no, we're not a sanctuary state. Meanwhile, the state legislature seems hell-bent on becoming even more of a sanctuary state. So they're lying to us. They're creating problems where people are falling through these cracks and Coloradans are getting hurt. Now, Congressman, it's only been 48 hours. Word is that this guy was a resident of the Colorado Springs area. What are you learning more about him?
Yeah, he was, in fact, living in Colorado Springs. He lived 10 minutes from my house. And that should scare every single American that in a town like Colorado Springs, sort of a conservative, military town, middle of America, we had a monster waiting to go off. Literally 10 minutes from where many of us live. So there's no doubt about that. He did. It appears that his daughter graduated from high school a week or so ago, and he apparently wanted to wait until after his daughter graduated to go and commit this atrocity. This thing was totally pre-planned on his part, And again, how do we find people like this? Well, the best way to prevent stuff like this is to control your border and not let them in the first place.
That's exactly right. That's Representative Jeff Crank, congressman from the Colorado Springs area where this terrorist was living. Now, we saw a list that came out from the Trump administration that I believe included and may have said El Paso County was a sanctuary county, or Colorado Springs may have been a sanctuary city. Has that been addressed? I know that was up in the air. Yeah. Congressman Boebert was working to get Weld County off that list. It seemed to be a little bit of an area of confusion. Can you update us on that?
Yeah, we within 24 hours, we got El Paso County removed from that list. I don't know how the list came about or how El Paso County got put on it, but El Paso County and our Sheriff Joe Roybal has been one who has really pushed back on the governor and some of these crazy policies. And, in fact, it was interesting that list came out, but literally like 3 days before, our sheriff issued a press release listing, I believe it was 16 people that we had turned over to ICE who had been deported since then. So our sheriff has always worked with them. He's frustrated with the governor. He's frustrated with the legislature, as most law-abiding sheriffs are in Colorado. But we were able to get that fixed. I worked on it. Lauren Boebert worked on it as well. We were able to get El Paso County taken off of that list, so it's no longer on it.
How about the city of Colorado Springs? Do they work? Are they seeking to work in tandem with ICE and federal immigration officials?
Yeah, they are. I mean, there was some discussion, I think, early on about whether they were less than working with the federal government, but they are. And in El Paso County runs the jail, and the city puts people in the county jail too. So all of that's run by our sheriff in El Paso County, and they do work with ICE. And I've asked ICE personally, let me know, because I told our mayor, I told our county commissioners, I said, if you're not going to work with the federal government on these issues, I'm not going to work with you. And so they know where I stand on it. I have a bill that I've introduced in Congress that would take away transportation funding from these sanctuary cities, and take away federal transportation money. And so, we've got to start pushing back on this and making folks understand that, again, what in the world happens to our society if governments don't work together? Just real quick, Jeff, I was on a ride-along just the other night in Colorado Springs, and we pulled over a car because it had expired tags. Now, that's a state issue, right? But the state has been asking all of these local governments to pull over vehicles that have expired tags and cite them because they want their money. Now, what would happen to the state budget if all of the local city law enforcement and county law enforcement just said, you know what, now we're not here to help you enforce your laws. We're just going to not do that anymore. I mean, they would have a serious budget issue. So government works best when it works together with different branches and levels of government, and that's what the citizens expect.
That's exactly right. That's Representative Jeff Crank from Colorado Springs. Representative, I know you got a busy day. I'll ask you just one more question here. I was in Boulder about a week before the firebombing, running the Boulder with my sons. Throughout the race, you had the Free Palestine movement protesting. Last summer, spent 4 days with the Palestinian protesters at the DNC in Chicago, interviewing them, trying to understand them. I firmly believe that the calls Free Palestine and From the River to the Sea are actually calls to violence, that they know exactly what they're doing. They're stirring up people. I interviewed these Palestinian protesters that were calling for Islamic domination in the world. They want to remove Jews from the face of the earth. One of the most anti-Semitic places is the Democrat members of Congress, people like Ilhan Omar and others. These are your colleagues. Are you seeing any self-reflection coming from them that their calls, that their words are inspiring people to lash out against Jews, they're inspiring anti-Semitism? The guy in Boulder the chants he was doing, Free Palestine, I want to end Zionism, are some of the same chants that have been made by some of the members of the Democrat caucus in the House of Representatives. Is there any self-reflection going on with the Democrat Party that they're inspiring anti-Semitism?
Well, I don't know overall if there is a reflection on the part of Democrats. I can tell you there isn't on the part of folks like Ilhan Omar and Tlaib and some of the others, just absolute radicals. I mean, it's frankly embarrassing, some of the positions that they take and the votes that they cast. I mean, sometimes we'll vote on something to condemn, violence against Israel, and they'll vote against it. And it's, the vote is 422 to 5 or 3 or something. So that kind of nonsense goes on. I do think the Democrat Party needs to wake up on that issue. They have a growing number of people within their ranks who are anti-Semitic and who are really pushing this as an issue. And it's a divide in their party. But I tell you, if they want to be a party that attracts votes, they need to, first of all, as a party, renounce that wing of the party. And I would just say, not only on the anti-Semitic aspect of this, but, we all, and political violence is wrong. And, I've called it out when we had, as you know, I was on the radio when we had the tragedy in Colorado Springs where the shooter came down and shot up Planned Parenthood, killed one of our police officers down there. I condemned that, as we all should have. That violence is never the way to go on these sorts of things, and we must condemn it. But I got to say, if you look at the last several months, right, we had the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO by someone sort of on the left, upset that at the cost of healthcare and at healthcare companies, we've had scratching and burning of Teslas. We've had these incidents of anti-Semitic attacks in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago, and then this one in Boulder a few days ago. We've had so many of these. I got to tell you, the left needs to get control of this kind of stuff. We have, eco-terrorism. They've got a problem on their hands. Not that we don't also have that, but right now we're seeing a very strong rise of that on the left. I condemn it just as I would conservative violence, but they've got to deal with that and confront it and admit that they have it in order to defeat it.
Representative Jeff Crank of the Colorado Springs area, that's where the accused Boulder terrorist was residing at the time. He's doing great work digging into who this guy is, his background, all that. You can follow him for the latest at Rep Jeff Crank on X, Rep Jeff Crank. He's doing great work down there. Thank you for representing the people of CD5 so well and joining us this morning.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Jeff and Bill, thank you both. Appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. All right, let's talk L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Boy, last night was crazy where we live. We live out in Elizabeth. It was raining like cats and dogs out there. I don't know if you got hit it did.
So much rain.
But my boys and I are playing basketball in the afternoon, and then I'm trying to head to bed in the middle of a snowstorm. It probably shifted 30 degrees.
Oh, yeah, easily. Yeah.
And so when you put in that type of pressure on your system, bouncing back from heat and cold, you need a quality heating and air conditioning system that can handle it all. We've done the research for you because our AC went out last summer. Looked at a number of different groups, invited them out to the house, talked to them, researched them. We chose L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. They're a small mom-and-pop operation. This is not a big corporate chain. And I have the owner's cell phone. I mean, they literally called to follow up with me to make sure everything was great. Wonderful company, L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Installed it all in one day, no stress, personal service from start to finish. They even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Our home finally comfortable no matter what the weather. And with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we got peace of mind. Here's some of the deals they're offering right now. Free programmable thermostat or carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges. They're not going to jack up the prices just to go out there and help you. $0 trip fee. They have a price match value guarantee on equipment. So no matter what kind of equipment you want, if someone's offering it at a lower deal, they'll price match it. free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, and reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. Give them a call. Here's their phone number, 720-851-1691, 720-851-1691, online at bestdenverhvac.com, bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called him. That number again, 720-851-1691. We'll continue with your phone calls and texts. What'd you think of what Jeff Crank had to say? If you want to join the conversation, the phone line's 303-696-1971. If you want to text us, the Dan Caplis Law text line 720-819-5115. We'll continue. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We learned from Jeff Crank in the previous segment, interviewing him, that the accused Boulder terrorist had been planning the attack for a year, tried to buy a gun. He wanted to shoot Jews, couldn't do it because he wasn't a legal citizen here. So he's blocked because he was an illegal alien from purchasing a gun. But the dude did have a driver's license here in Colorado. Let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada. Good morning, Joe. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning, Jeff, Billy. I want to start by congratulating KNUS for getting all over this story, because if you do a little Google search, you'll start realizing the mainstream media and Google and the big tech are covering this story up. You can tell it's disappearing. It's an attempt to get it out of the media, because just like remember the guy in King Soopers, that story got disappeared. They said he was a nut job. All of a sudden, all the ties to Islam disappeared. This is going to happen here again. And I want to secondly congratulate the Democrat Party, because you provided the impetus for this. Remember the Free Palestine movement, or have you already forgotten it? Because you are the cause of stirring up this muck. And thank you, Harvard. You now have an intifada right here. Thank you. Thank you so much. So you did it, Democrats. You have created the worldwide intifada. Congrats.
Well, Joe, what I've always found shocking about this is, like, if you just go talk to Palestinian protesters, you learn what they want. They want Islamic domination. They say it into the microphone. We want Islamic domination, and they'll initially say, we want Israel out of the Middle East, but if you press them, they'll eventually get to, well, we don't want Jews anywhere at all, period. And so they say it. You have a terrorist shouting, end Zionists, while he seeks to burn Jews in Boulder. Right, like, all right, if you just wanted to critique Zionism, why are you trying to kill Jews in Boulder, Colorado, right? And he even says, they pressed him in the interrogation. I've seen reports now going, he just wanted to kill Jews. Danielle Jurinsky was exactly right yesterday when she was on the show, saying all they want are dead Jews. That's the movement. And I asked Jeff Crank about that in Congress, because he has colleagues of his in Congress that are espousing this. It's in the Democrat Party. There's a reason why the Palestinians were not protesting outside the RNC, because they know they're not going to move the RNC. They're not going to move Republicans. Republicans are supportive of Jews, they're supportive of the state of Israel, but they think they have a better shot of peeling off the Democrat Party from its support of Israel. You combine that with the sanctuary state policies here in Colorado, this is a mess that Democrats have made for themselves.
Absolutely. There's 1,000 more of these guys. Pam Bondi, come here and take a sniff. They're here in force. If you don't think that Boulder has a bunch of these folks, go to the next Palestine rally. If you don't think that this is going to happen again, take a look at our media. They're just trying to mea culpa. Oops, don't know nothing. Move along. Same with our governor. Hey, Gov, you encourage this mess. Where is your voice? Come on, you swallowed your tongue? Let's get out there and talk about this. You know what? The Democrat Party won't say anything, and it reminds us of somebody they said it was about. Remember, they told us that Donald Trump was the new Hitler. Well, guess what? You better own this now, Democrats. You guys are helping to encourage assault of the Jewish people here in our country. get out and get in front of it, or we know who you are. You can't hide it. You can't.
No.
You're trying to.
Joe, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. We're just up against a break here. We'll continue. We got more phone calls coming in. Joe's line will be open 303-696-1971. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Spoke with Jeff Crank earlier this hour. The accused Boulder terrorist had tried to buy a gun here in Colorado. He was denied because he's an illegal alien. Crank pointing out that this would mean the Biden FBI and Polis CBI were on notice about him. He did get a driver's license in 2024. Here's a text message from 5695. Dude has a Colorado driver's license. His kid goes to high school here. Dollars to donuts. He might have voted in 2024, but we don't know that for sure. Jeff Crank has no information, but he's looking into that. This guy came from Colorado Springs, drove an hour up to Boulder, where he then firebombed the 12 Israeli supporters up there. Let's go to the phone lines.
And if he did vote, that would be a break in the system, because driver licenses are allowed for people that are illegal, which would be required, but it would have to be a certain type of driver's license. But so far, agree or disagree, everything inside the system, we didn't see anything fall through the cracks so far. So him voting would be something that would fall through the cracks. It would be something that would not be allowed, and would also mean that his driver's license would have been categorized incorrectly. So let's see what happens. Let's see.
Right now in the state of Colorado, you can get a driver's license very quickly if you're not a legal citizen. You used to have to wait a certain amount of time. They took away that requirement, so it's not the same driver's license that allows you to drive. In fact, it has a thing that says non-resident, I think, on it.
Yep.
But he got the driver's license after his visa had expired, which tells you that the Colorado driver's license and the federal immigration databases are not talking to each other.
Yeah,
let's go to Larry in Aurora. Good morning, Larry. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. Yeah, I just want to say, as I listen to the conversation and the organicness that happened really in the tragedy that happened to these people really turns, for me, it seemed to turn, as I listen to conversation all over, television, listen to you guys, it turns into some sort of synthetic thing. And the reason I say that is when you put politics in it, you have the Democrats and you have the Republicans, and all I see really is the midterms, and it really just goes, and then these people get left behind. And one reason I say that is that when you're talking about the threat, if you really are serious, you talk about the threat, domestic and foreign, and what I'll never get out of my mind is I'll never forget when they said, it was on the thing to say, Jews will not replace us. And
the Charleston March,
all about, but that's pretty serious. And Trump said there's on both sides, but I don't hear the domestic part and say the synergy and energy going toward that, because the threat is a threat no matter where it comes from.
Larry, there is absolutely a portion of the right that's anti-Semitic. They're vicious. They're conspiratorial. I think they've been captured by a neo-Marxist ideology that believes that somehow because Jews are successful, they're part of this conspiratorial cabal that wants to oppress people or abuse children or whatever that is. That needs to be condemned, absolutely, that on the right. But there were thousands of people outside the Democrat Party convention chanting Free Palestine from the river to the sea. It is bigger on the left than it is on the right, but there's still an element on the right that needs to be condemned, Larry.
Yeah, and Larry, the thing that I think you're correct about is the idea of the violence. I do believe that your critique that on either side, individuals that are saying violence is the way in which for us to express our politics, and that's how we will affect change, is through violence in politics. I believe you're right, that is going to be ignored and going to be thrown out of both parties. I don't think that anybody that may agree with people that are pro-Palestine and think that Israel is not prosecuting this war properly is going to be persuaded by the attack in Boulder. I don't think that has made anybody on that side feel like, obviously, we are the righteous in this one because one of our supporters went and burned a bunch of people over the age of 50 that were doing a peaceful march asking for prayers for hostages, not for hostages in Boulder.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily persuadable.
Yes, and then my last point, that's great, Billy. My last point is, and I hopefully it don't get taken wrong, but as I look over this over the last couple of months, and then what's happening, with the Gaza, and then what I know in the past is that what people who feel powerless and they don't have the big guns and the tongue, what they do is they go to, and they're saying,
Larry, we're just out of time. I'm sorry. You're listening to
right.
Jeff and Bill.
This is KNUS. Thanks, Larry.
West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee, coffee, coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, it's 8 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It meets all right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, where you're invited to be a part of the conversation by giving us a call at 303-696-1971 or text us on the Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Headline coming from the Denver Gazette: Jeffco Public Schools to be investigated by the U.S. Department of Education. The department is investigating alleged Title IX abuses. We'll get into this. Joining us here in just a few minutes, Lindsay Dotko with Jeffco Kids First. You may remember this, Libs of TikTok, which is like an international brand, right, says at one point that Jefferson County schools may be the most corrupt school district in the entire country. It is so broken. It feels like there's a story after story of abuse coming out, of things being hidden, the head of schools being brought up on charges regarding child pornography and then killing himself over this. Another school psychologist being arrested recently for prostitution on campus, drug distribution as well. Unbelievable. So,
yes, and sexual assault on one of the students on campus as well. On campus. That's great. Good job.
And then you remember the Columbine teacher developing a relationship with a kid that now lives in California with the kid. Jeez. So, we're going to talk about what this latest investigation from the U.S. Department of Education to Jeffco Public Schools is going to look like. But now it's time for your 8 a.m. dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It is Tuesday, 48 and rainy outside in Denver, expecting a high of 58 today. The 710 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, Colorado Congressman Jeff Crank, District 5, on with Jeff and Billy last hour. Great interview talking about the terrorist, Mohammed Solomon, who says he has no regrets. He attacked all the victims in Boulder. He's here illegally, planned for a year to do this, overstayed his visa. So how does he have a Colorado driver's license? Just another example of you get what you pay for or you vote for in a blue state.
I don't know. Should it shock us when we just purposefully hand out and we say, as a state, the state of Colorado says they don't care if someone's here legally or illegally, they're going to issue driver's license. You know, this is a total breakdown of the rule of law. This whole thing goes to show you when governments don't work together, how the system falls apart.
A Jewish organization is trying to raise money for the people injured. Jewish Colorado announced the creation of the Boulder Security Fund. The group hopes to raise $160,000 in addition to offering direct victim support. The fund will help pay for enhanced security for Jewish institutions and events and trauma counseling for those affected. A group of Jewish state lawmakers asking allies to speak out against anti-Semitism following the attack in Boulder. 6 members of the legislature issued a statement on Monday saying the rising tide of anti-Semitic attacks threatens the fabric of what makes America worth believing in. It also urged people to confront hate forcefully before it becomes normalized. Sunday's attack injured a dozen people, as we know, taking part in that weekly march for the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas. Schmuck Schumer still trying to push the commie agenda, but he can't even get their latest little acronym out. TACO. TACO stands for Trump Always Chickens Out. Oh, God. These people are so funny. Funny. On tariffs. Trump always chickens out on tariffs, according to them. Here we go. Schmucky.
Made it clear that we're in Zelensky's corner. I hope on Ukraine the president's not the taco president. Trump always loses the fight. Trump always cops out, is what taco stands for.
No. I think they wanted you to say Trump always chickens out, but he's looking down at his notes.
That we're in Zelensky's corner. I hope on Ukraine the president's not the taco president. Trump always loses the fight. Trump always cops out, is what taco stands for.
Good cover, though. I give it to him, man. Good cover. Trump always cops out. And then there's Congressman Eric Swalwell, who sleeps with Chinese spies. He should be in prison. His team puts together this stupid video that he thought was really funny. He's eating a taco at his desk, and one of his loser assistants comes in to ask him the taco question.
Hey, Congressman.
Can I help you?
What the is up with Trump always chickening out on tariffs?
Oh, that was so funny. He was sitting there eating a Taco Bell taco. Yes. Just dumb. Not even funny. No creativity, like Tampon Tim.
The thing that bothers a teacher more than anything is to watch a bully, to watch this bully and to stop it. And when it's a child, you talk to them and you tell them why bullying's wrong. But when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the out of him back. You push back.
Yeah, they arrested him, called him every name in the book, tried to ruin his family, tried to assassinate him 2 times. Yeah, it's time to bully Trump. What a joke. That dude is a freak. DJT, Tim Walz is. Thank you. DJT on Truth Social this morning, he says that a biological male competed in the California Girls State Finals. We talked about that on Monday. Then he said winning big, despite the fact that they were warned by me not to do so. As Governor Gavin Newsom fully understands, large-scale fines will be imposed. Exclamation mark. I love it. He needs to bring all those runners up to the White House and give them gold medals. That's what needs to happen. Actor Jonathan Joss is dead. He was 59. He was known for playing the role of John Redcorn on the animated series King of the Hill. According to the San Antonio Police Department, Joss was killed on Sunday after reportedly getting into a heated argument with a neighbor, and he was shot. Investigation is underway. The Rockies won on Monday 6-4 over the Marlins. First pitch today, 4:40. 45 in Lakewood, 47 Parker, 48 Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's going to be rather cool, not only today, but for the next several days here along the Front Range. Highs only in the mid-50s to near 60 degrees with morning showers, scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. Few showers, upper 40s tonight. Warming to the 60s and lower 70s Wednesday, afternoon thunderstorms. Lows 50s Wednesday night, only 60s with showers and thunderstorms again Thursday and Friday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
All right, headline from the Denver Gazette, Jeffco Public Schools to be investigated by the U.S. Department of Education. And they announced it Monday They're investigating Jeffco Public Schools regarding potential Title IX violations. The Department of Education announced the investigation to mark the 53rd anniversary of Title IX, looking into 2 separate schools for allegedly violating federal law protecting women's spaces. According to the news release from the Department of Education, Jeffco Public Schools is allegedly violating federal law with its policy that students will be assigned to share overnight accommodations with other students that share a student's, quote, gender identity, unquote, rather than rooming by sex, breaking Title IX's inclusion of female students' rights to sex-segregated intimate spaces. The department claims to have heard several disturbing reports, including from parents of an 11-year-old girl discovering their daughter would have had to share a bed with a male student on an overnight school trip without being notified by the school. The district allegedly misleads parents by informing them that girls and boys will be separated for overnight accommodations without divulging that its definition of girl includes boys who claim a female identity. The district told the Denver Gazette in response that Jeffco Public Schools follows all Colorado state laws when it comes to how we treat students, staff, and families. There's nothing in the language of Title IX that prohibits the degree of protection that the state of Colorado provides, pointing to Colorado's Anti-Discrimination Act, Rule 81.9. The rule says all covered entities shall allow individuals to the use of gender-segregated facilities that are consistent with their gender identity. Gender-segregated facilities include but are not limited to restrooms, locker rooms, dressing rooms, and dormitories. The department has already alerted Superintendent Tracy Dorland of the investigation. Dorland facing scrutiny from the teachers' unions regarding a lack of safety among students, snowballing after 6 sexual misconduct-related incidents and arrests happening within the district since the end of 2023. Now, she has been on top of what's happening in Jefferson County schools. I mean, she's got Cora reports. She's down there fighting at the school board. She is paying attention, has been following the problems in Jefferson County probably better than anybody else. It's an honor to have her on the show. Lindsay Datko with Jeffco Kids First. Good morning, Lindsay. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
All right. So lots of problems. I mean, I remember when Libs of TikTok said that the worst school district in the country was Jefferson County schools. Now the Trump administration issuing an investigation coming from the Department of Education. Help us make sense of everything happening here.
Yeah, let me start by just reminding everyone what the ask is here. And it's providing parental notification and offering accommodation. And Jeffco Schools Chief of Legal Julie Tolleson is refusing, now putting this district at even greater risk with the Trump mechanism of enforcement being to pull federal funding in the midst of a severe budget deficit crisis.
So the ask is just simply, hey, let the parents know. No? I mean, I've got a teenage daughter. Bill, you've got a teenage daughter. Heading out on a school overnight trip, it seems to me that this would be pretty simple. What have you heard from the school district as to why they can't even just notify parents?
Well, it's fascinating because Alliance Defending Freedom is suing the district on this based on multiple families, including the family with the child who went to D.C. and she ended up assigned a bed with a biological boy. And then we have a week-long outdoor lab mountain trip for our 6th graders, 11-year-olds. And in Jeffco Kids First, with our 8,400 families, we have uncovered not infrequent instances of high school leaders who are 18 and peers who are bunking and monitoring showers together of the opposite sex. And we have used those to file an OCR report. 100 of our families filled out the complaint form. Again, Alliance Defending Freedom is suing, and they offered a solution where Jeffco Schools would just simply give a blanket opt-out form to families. Are you okay with this situation or not? Without outing any student. And the requests are incredibly reasonable and objective, and Jeffco Schools is showing that they're not going to make this about safety and accommodations for all. They're going to make this an ideological battle. And that is a huge concern amidst a sexual abuse crisis in our schools, to top it off.
I mean, it seems like if you're a progressive family, right, and it doesn't matter to you what the biological sex is, the gender identity is good enough to where if your daughter is going to bunk up with a trans woman, so a man that believes he's a woman and identifies as a woman, and you as a progressive family go, it's no problem. It's whatever. No big deal. Off you go. Yeah. No problem. And if you're maybe a more conservative family and you go, look, okay, we're not asking that the trans kid doesn't go on the trip. We're just saying our daughter, I don't feel comfortable with her bunking with a biological dude. All right? So can you just make sure that doesn't happen, or at least notify us maybe the trip's not the best thing if our daughter is actually going to be in the room? Having a trans kid on the trip isn't a concern. It doesn't seem to be the issue. They're just asking to be notified and not put their daughter in that type of situation. Is that right? Did I get that right?
That's correct. And, I was disturbed. 7 News put out an article, and the statement from Jeffco Schools described the fact that families have the ultimate choice whether or not their child attends or goes on these trips. Well, first of all, let's highlight the belonging mantra that Jeffco touts, where everybody feels welcome and everybody is involved. Is a required trip, part of the curriculum. And so what they're saying is, basically, we aren't serious about accommodating you if you don't fit into our ideological views. And that is absolutely bastardizing their belonging mantra.
That's Lindsay Dotko. Lindsay's with Jeffco Kids First. We're talking to her upon the headline that broke yesterday, Jeffco Public Schools to be investigated by U.S. Department of Education. Now, Lindsay, you're not an attorney. You're not fighting these battles, the legal side of it. So not expecting a legal analysis here. But the nation's attention has now become focused on Jefferson County Public Schools. I mean, now you got the White House's attention in everything you're battling. The problems with the school board leadership, the problems with the superintendent, the sexual abuse scandals that are taking place. A head of school that committed suicide because it was discovered he was trafficking with child pornography. I mean, all these problems that exist in Jeffco Schools, from your experience on the ground, is this national spotlight going to change things? Do you expect Jeffco Schools to dig deeper trenches to defend their positions? What do you think this spotlight might do to all the problems facing Jeffco Public Schools?
Yeah, and we have been working incredibly hard, to fight locally. And when we saw that we were going to need additional help, we started making every effort to get the national attention. Gays Against Groomers flew out our documentation to the U.S. Department of Ed, and we've reached out to White House attorney contacts. We have been working tirelessly to get attention, and we do see this as a result of that. And, of course, Alliance Defending Freedom's lawsuit is a massive element of that. But I want to mention, though, the state law is actually more forgiving and more accommodating than what Jeffco School is stating. There is Colorado code that allows accommodation in intimate spaces where you are undressed around one another. And that is not happening in Jeffco Schools on these trips. In addition, their policy, it was fascinating because we were able to advocate to rid their policy of deception and add accommodation for all students where there are transgender situations in bathrooms and locker rooms. But when we made those changes, they took out privacy accommodations for overnight travel once this lawsuit started. And it had been in there. So they are absolutely going the other direction. And on top of that, we made a bombshell policy discovery that showed that Jeffco Schools in 2020 was successfully implementing the same policy that they're now being sued for. They were allowing parents, and in fact requiring that parents gave permission for these situations. So it is absolutely an ideological statement from Jeffco Schools. They intend to dig in on this, led by Julie Tolleson, and we have clearly successfully lobbied federal attention, and I think we're going to see successful change if we continue to pressure.
That's Lindsay Dotko with Jeffco Kids First. Do you have any sense of what some of that change may look like? I mean, could the Department of Education withhold federal education funding to Jefferson County schools because of the violation of these Title IX incidents?
Well, just to give you a tiny glimpse into our budget crisis, this year Jeffco's revenue was $947 million. They've spent $981 million, leaving a $34 million deficit, and that increases to $41 million deficit in 26-27. And if Tabor is drawn on, or the 3% reserves there, then they must fill that back up, and within a year. And if there's no other means, a tax can be levied. So is Julie Tolleson then suggesting that taxpayers are going to have taxes raised because she's implementing her ideology and not being objective on this safety issue? Because, again, the Trump mechanism for enforcement is going to be to withhold federal funding. And we simply, in Jeffco Schools, cannot afford another hit to our budget.
Yeah, and that hit, it looks like, could be $4 million. This is what Google is saying. 2024-2025 school year, Jefferson County Public Schools anticipates receiving approximately $4 million in funding from the U.S. Department of Education. So on a $41 million deficit, that's going to add a lot to it out of a $981 million budget, I think is what you said. It's a chunk of change, but it's not huge. So I guess Jeffco could dig its heels in and go, no, we're going to stand on these policy issues and just cut out the $4 million.
They absolutely could, but again, it's dire circumstances, and they are functioning on a deficit. And so even $4 million at this point is going to stretch Jeffco Schools. And this ultimately falls on the Board of Education and Julie Tolleson, who is the legal head of this district.
What have you heard from the Board of Education? Anything on this investigation coming from the Trump administration?
Not on this so far, but I'll tell you that when they are confronted by community members, they absolutely parrot Julie Tolleson's talking points, and they say that simply they're following state law, and they will refuse to acknowledge that it is possible to accommodate without removing privacy accommodations for transgender students. It's possible to accommodate all, and so that talking point is solid and consistent for our board, and they need to look at what is being asked and what is possible here, because the community is not going to let up on this. This is a incredibly heated issue that brings many people together.
Well, there are moments when I think Christian families are leaving public education, and then there are moments that I think Christian families are being forced out of government-run education, this being one of them. Jeffco Public Schools now being investigated by the U.S. Department of Education. We're talking with Lindsay Dotko, Jeffco Kids First. Bill, you had a question?
Yeah, I got a question, and it's kind of to both of you, the idea of, now, first of all, I do agree with the premise that both sides in the conversation should have accommodation. The idea that the Jeffco school district only talked to one group of parents about accommodating the transgender students, not looking at parents that would not accommodate and didn't want the co-housing issue. That seems unreasonable, and so I support Lindsay on that one. What I'm worried about is this idea of the Department of Education and the investigation. And where I'm going with this is, we saw under the previous Biden administration, he was trying to expand Title IX. Let's say that happens, or the courts allow a future president to do that. would we also support that president and that administration using the Department of Education to take funds away from school districts that don't agree with a policy like Jeffco? I'm just looking at down the road, if we are trumpeting and are excited about the Department of Education coming at this because it supports our personal worldview, are we going to be just as excited when it seems that the Department of Education isn't supporting our worldview? Should we look at this more neutrally?
Well, I think, Bill, that we are looking at it neutrally. And the fact, again, the ask is parental notification and accommodation for everyone, and that's not happening. And so because of that, what's happening through the U.S. Department of Education is going to enforce that fairness.
Idea that you are trying to be neutral, and it's the state that's not being neutral.
But if the parameters of Title IX, because this is going under Title IX, if the parameters of Title IX were changed as Joe Biden tried to, then would it be okay for the Department of Education to come in under those new rules?
Yeah,
I'm worried about that.
I mean, the federal government, it does use this funding as a type of sword. I mean, it seems to be like a good argument to return the money back down to the states and not have the federal government wane with so much power. But in this case, it's being used in a way to try to actualize a form of fairness.
Yeah, and where I'm worried about this is that we seem to want to start using approved funding as that sword rather than new funding. And in the tradition, usually it is new funding that is held out as the carrot, and you don't get the new funding, and that's the stick. It's more difficult many times to go back to funding that has already been approved and legislated, which would be the Department of Education.
It's like what Jared Polis is doing with regards to the localities in high-density development, right? That seems to be a tool used on both sides. I do have a question for you. We're talking with Lindsay Dotko, Jeffco Kids First. Just 4 days ago, Colorado School District's Teachers Union, the Jeffco School District Teachers Union, announced a vote of no confidence with regards to the superintendent, Tracy Dorland. Can you give us any insight on that?
Yeah, and that's definitely something that's a huge issue right now, Jeffco Schools. Today, they have scheduled an executive session to review the superintendent's contract. And a lot of people are conflicted about this issue. The union, from my perspective, used all of our work to bring accommodation, as we just discussed, to all families as rationale for removing her. And I am deeply concerned about the union and the power that they will receive should this work to remove the superintendent, should that be the means to remove her. And so we will find out soon what the decision is from the board and what their votes are on removing the superintendent. There's a lot of concern that the superintendent is a scapegoat to cover up basically responsibility for the board. There's other concern that shows the board is doing this to resolve issues that they find to be incredibly important. And so this is something that is really rattling our district, and we will have yet to see how it unfolds, but we'll be watching closely.
That's Lindsay Dotko with Jeffco Kids First. Lindsay, I walked through when Jeffco's school board got a handful of conservatives on there, good people like John Newkirk, right? Storied business career, successful guy, wants to get on the school board to bring about, school choice and some of those opportunities. The viciousness that Jefferson County brought against him to the point where he had to have law enforcement outside of his home to protect him. Jefferson County, for well over a decade now, has been the center point of radical progressive ideology pushed into government-run education. It seems to be collapsing right now. Where do you see this going? Do you see changes? Could you get conservatives onto the school board? I know that's an off-year election coming up here soon. Could we actually see some changes? Or is Jeffco, Jefferson County Public Schools just so gone that it's just going to be a bastion of progressive efforts and they're willing to give up federal funding if that means that they'll have to do it?
Yeah, isn't it amazing that the controversy before for the recall was social studies curriculum? And look where we're at now with our issues. We're talking about rampant sexual abuse. We're talking about a massive budget crisis, dipping into our reserves. And so I think a lot of people out there will be strategizing politically with this. Jeffco Kids First is a charitable organization, and we just stay steady with our issues that we find important to the community. And so I am really anxious to see how this plays out personally, politically, and if we're able to bring balance to the Board of Education. If there's any time to do it, I think it's now, because these issues are so unifying. We're talking about the safety of children. And so it'll be really interesting to have our eyes on Jefferson County across this state, I believe.
Now that's Lindsay Dotko, Jeffco Kids First. We're talking Jefferson Public Schools now to be investigated by U.S. Department of Education over Title IX violations. It seems a simple accommodation, but when you're driven by progressive radicals, they're going to dig their heels in, force a lawsuit, potentially give up federal funding, and all they had to do was notify parents and provide any accommodations for parents that might not be comfortable with a biological male being in a private space with a biological female. It seems excessive, but that's where we are in the state of Colorado. Lindsay Dotko, thank you so much for joining us. How can people follow the good work you're doing with Jeffco Kids First?
Yeah, we have a website, www.jeffcokidsfirst.com. And then all the action unfolds on our Facebook group, which is Jeffco Kids First. We'd love to have you join us there. Whether you agree or not, we love to have everyone who comes to the conversation and adds their voice.
Lindsay Dotko, Jeffco Kids First. Thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Thanks, Lindsay. This has been fun.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's talk alarm detection systems. We know we have a crime issue here in Colorado, and if you're trying to build your business, run your business, you got to have a quality alarm system. We've done the research for you. The best in the game in Colorado, alarm detection systems for the highest level of service and expertise. And they combine it all into one source. So you have your cameras, your key card access, your fire and intrusion systems all together. Alarm Detection Systems, ADS, offers expert alarm installation and testing by highly trained technicians, 24/7 professional monitoring, same day or next day service upon request, dedicated teams for cameras and access control and fire alarms, and over 300 security professionals working for you. Choosing ADS means your business stays protected, will be ready to open tomorrow. They combine human monitoring with the latest AI camera technology, preventing crime in real time. Trusted by small and large businesses, including many Colorado schools. Their security experts will review your system for free. Go to adsalarm.com to schedule your appointment today. adsalarm.com. Alarm Detection Systems, the first choice of Front Range and Colorado businesses. adsalarm.com. Here's my question to our listeners. $4 million of federal funding at stake, possibly larger money at stake with regards to lawyers' fees, fighting the Department of Education. Do you see this as a worthwhile issue? Standing strong? No, we're not going to notify parents on overnight excursions. You got to deal with whatever child we put in that room. How dare you question us? Should Jefferson County stand strong? Or do you see this as an overreach from the Department of Education, being willing to threaten funding? $4 million on a little local school district, and they're being bullies for it. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Jefferson County Public Schools to be investigated by the U.S. Department of Education over Title IX issues. They're looking at two separate schools in light of the 53rd anniversary of Title IX. According to the news release from the Department of Education, Jeffco Public Schools is allegedly violating federal law with its policies that students will be assigned to share overnight accommodations with other students that share a student's gender identity rather than rooming by sex, breaking Title IX's inclusion of female students' right to sex-segregated intimate spaces. I, for one, am thrilled that the Trump Department of Education is doing this. Look, as I said during the last segment, I think that there are times when Christians are like checking out of government-run education, and they're like, you know what, this just isn't for me. You guys are so agenda-driven. It's the pride flags on the walls. It's just not the values you guys are pushing in comprehensive sex education. It's not what I want my kids learning. I just don't want to be a part of what you're doing. And then there are times where I think they're pushed out of schools. Where, like, if you're a parent in Jeffco Public Schools, you got to take this mandatory 6th grade trip, and you're just simply going, look, we're not saying trans kids can't go on the trip. No one's trying to stop them. But if you're going to house my daughter, for instance, with a biological male, can you at least notify me, step one, if it's a problem, and I go, I don't want my daughter in 6th grade. I mean, have you ever met a middle school boy? Living in a same room with a biological boy? Can you find a progressive family that's okay with that? Me as a conservative family, I don't want to be able. And the Jeffco Public Schools is going, no, we're going to force you. We're not going to notify you. You're going to have to deal with whoever we bunked your kid with. And now Department of Education is like, fine, we'll pull $4 million from you. Jeffco, it just seems so agenda-driven to me, and an unwillingness to compromise and accommodate conservative families that it feels like they're just pushing the conservative families out the door. Let's go to the phone lines. Melissa, Denver. Good morning, Melissa. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning. I just wanted to say I feel like this is another thing where the Democrats are assuming that they know everything and they know who kids or people might be attracted to. They're just, parts need to be separate. Bruce Jenner, isn't Bruce Jenner with a woman? And then aren't there, I told Billy, there's a couple that made it on the front of Time magazine during the COVID because they were the opposite sex of each other, but they were trying to be the other sex, but they were a couple, and because their medication ran out, they got pregnant during the COVID and are having a baby because it's, the parts just shouldn't be there, the opposite parts.
Right, and I go, have you ever met a middle school boy? I mean, they might identify one way one day, but I did youth ministry for years. They got raging hormones. And to put your daughter with those boys and just go, well, we're not even going to notify you, parents. Good luck. It's just crazy.
Well, right. The heterosexual women early in age that, make out with a girl because you want to experiment. So,
No.
I mean, it's not a good idea, period.
Yeah, I agree. Melissa.
And I don't think that the kids would want to sleep with each other like that most of the time anyway. Ask them.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember being a middle school girl and wanting to hang out with a middle school boy? I mean, I remember that kind of kicks in a little bit later, but 6th grade, I remember girls, for the most part, just being like, I don't want anything to do with boys. Now I got to deal with one in my living facilities.
I didn't even want to change in front of the other girls in the locker room. I can't imagine a boy being there.
Melissa, great call. Melissa from Denver. Her line will be open 303-696-1971. Jeffco Public Schools to be investigated by the U.S. Department of Education. Let's go to Joan in Lakewood. Good morning, Joan. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Good morning.
Good morning. I actually taught with Lindsay in the Denver Public Schools in the early 2000s, and she is one of the best and most respected people out there as far as children go. And she is doing tremendous work, and people need to go to her website and support her and stuff. I am here in the community, and I know families here in the community. I know families that have left and are homeschooling. I know families that are still struggling with the system and doing things like becoming on their parent advocacy boards and just feel like they're not being listened to at all. They're like token conservatives. And I know families that are praying that their children will make it out of Green Mountain. I don't know if you know what happened in Green Mountain. There was an arrest, I think about a month ago, of the counselor. And I haven't heard anything more about it. I know they came in, I know they arrested him, and that's all the more I've heard. But it really disturbed the Green Mountain community.
Joan, the county could lose $4 million on a deficit. It's already running at $34 million, possibly up to $41 million next year. Is it worth it? Is it worth Jefferson County digging in its heels to, I guess, defend trans kids? But I don't think that's even that fair as a description of what they're doing. But, I mean, this is going to cost Jefferson County some serious money. You're a taxpayer in Lakewood. Your thoughts?
Well, here's one of the things that I'm just curious about. We have not seen any of the boys competing against girls here in Jefferson County that I know of. And that the controversy is over housing, which is, I think, more disturbing than a child out jumping girls. So it's kind of interesting to me that they have done this. I think that they think that they can get around having their funding pulled, and I think they are mistaken.
Joan, Lakewood, great call. Sure, appreciate it.
Thank you. You know, I know we got to get to a break, but one of the things that I would love to talk about, and listening to some of the calls and listening to Lindsay, again, I agree that parents on all sides should be accommodated, but I'm curious if we're having the wrong discussion. And what I mean by that is, and we'll talk about this when we get back, are we making a mistake by equating gender identity with sexual orientation? Are we making assumptions about one group of students based on a perceived sexual identity that may or may not be true?
All right. We'll get into that more. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Denver Gazette reporting that Jefferson County Public Schools are going to be investigated by the Department of Education in light of Title IX violations. Bill, you had a question you wanted to raise.
Yeah, I was basically asking that in this conversation, I agree that both sides should be asked about accommodations. And when you are going to put someone together in any sort of an overnight sleeping arrangement, I would hope that you would do it through friendships and things like that. You wouldn't just draw a list of names. But it looks like Jeff Code School District did that on a number of occasions. And I do believe that there should be accommodation on both sides, that parents should be allowed to approve or not approve for the people that their kids are going to be sleeping with on any sort of an overnight trip. But I'm worried about, are we making an assumption about gender identity that equates to sexual orientation? I keep hearing over and over again that we're putting a guy in with this young girl. However, if that guy happens to be gay, the sexual tension and dynamic that everybody has been angry about ceases to exist. So, but on the other side, if you take that same gay boy that would be the person possibly in the room with the girl, and you put him in the same room with another boy, now you've created the same sexual tension, anxiety, and dynamic that we're worried about, that we're accusing the transgender of. So I'm worried that we're equating the two. But yeah, we got Matt on the phones and stuff.
I have a question as to whether or not you really know that in sixth grade. Let's go to Matt in Denver. Good morning, Matt. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Yeah, morning.
Gentlemen, so good to be with you. I think we can sort of cut through all these sort of pretend scenarios and just look at, when you think of demonic states in the United States, Colorado's a top 5. There's no doubt about that. And I would say it's challenging California for number 1 if it's not already taken care of that. But I would ask you, gentlemen, to go back and look at the commonality between the major elected leadership in Colorado. Start right there with Jared Polis, Governor, Phil Weiser, Attorney General, Jenna Griswold, Secretary of State, Michael Bennett, U.S. Senator. Gentlemen, what do those 4 powerful Coloradans have in common besides being Democrat? You know the answer.
Well, 3 out of the 4 are Jewish.
They're all Jewish. That's the deal.
I don't know. I didn't know Bennett was or not, so I couldn't make that assumption. Didn't know, so I wasn't going to make.
Excuse me?
So I didn't know Bennett was or not, but I knew the other 3 were.
He absolutely is. And so then what I start to do, because this con job that's come on over America is that, Jewish people are holy and Israel's our greatest ally. But I'm looking at fruit. I want to look at the fruit that these Jewish holy people are, propagating onto the public. And you can go down the list, but when does that conversation become first and foremost that this connection to Talmudic, rabbinic Judaism is producing things like boys in girls' lockers?
Well, Matt, I've known Orthodox Jews, and they would be highly critical of the type of Judaism that Jared Polis and Michael Bennett and Jenna Griswold and Phil Weiser operate in. So I'm not sure it has to do with their seriousness of their commitment to Judaism.
It's not, but it's what they do is they hide behind the veil of holiness, which is Judaism. And as you see what's going on right now in America, Donald Trump led, and Donald Trump may have already converted to Judaism. We don't know that yet, but his instincts are certainly Jewish-based. But if you look at this, you're going to be deported pretty soon if you dare have a conversation like this. You can't speak ill of them, and you certainly can't question their authority. Why? Because they're Jews, but they're Talmudic Jews, and it's a very different thing.
I'm going to put this on hold. That's very
all
weird.
Right. Well, we'll continue.
Weird.
You're listening to Jeff
Jewish.
and Bill.
KNUS. That was strange.
Well, it's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Colorado's blue, America's red. It all meets right here on the Jeff and Bill Show, where you're invited to be a part of the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115. Coming up after news and comment with Blake Olson, I'm going to play some audio from you from a producer in Hollywood that's going to stun you as to how the entire industry of television that you're watching is about to change entirely.
Yeah, this is crazy.
This is wild. You're not going to want to miss it. But now is time for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good Tuesday morning, 48 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of 58 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story just a few minutes ago, finding out that the White House sending the first round of DOGE cuts to Speaker Mike Johnson today. Should be a busy week at the Capitol and the White House.
A Holocaust survivor was burned yesterday. Burned. Survived the Holocaust and burned. And they're closely monitoring the situation. Shame on you.
Still holds up 23 hours later. Danielle Jurinsky going after Governor Polis. The terrorist charged in the attack in Boulder says that he has no regrets and wanted those he targeted to die. Police say Mohammed Solomon dressed as a gardener to get close to the protesters when he used a makeshift flamethrower and Molotov cocktails on the crowd. At least 12 were injured, as we all know, and one being a Holocaust survivor who is recovering from severe burns. Solomon, who's here illegally, has been hit with charges including attempted murder and a federal hate crime. Colorado Congressman Jeff Crank, District 5, on with Jeff and Bill this morning, and he wants to know how Solomon got a Colorado driver's license. Just another example of, yay, you get what you vote for in a blue state with all these progressive feel-good laws.
I don't know. Should it shock us when we just purposely hand out and we say, as a state, the state of Colorado says they don't care if someone's here legally or illegally, they're going to issue driver's license. You know, this is a total breakdown of the rule of law. This whole thing goes to show you when governments don't work together, how the system falls apart.
Exactly. Federal agents are descending on the nation's immigration courts, taking illegals into custody after their asylum cases are dismissed. It's going on in two of Texas's biggest cities. DJT sending a strong message. Mark Krikorian heads the Center for Immigration Studies.
Communicate to people that self-deportation is a better option. They're illegal immigrants. Just because they show up for the court date they were given doesn't change the fact that it should never have been admitted. There's a direct purpose to take into custody illegal immigrants, but there's the indirect message that the party is over.
Turn out the lights. The party's over.
Agents have been taking families into custody in both Dallas and San Antonio. An ICE spokeswoman confirmed the expedited removals are for people who have been here less than 2 years.
Alliance Defending Freedom is suing the district on this based on multiple families, including the family with the child who went to D.C. and she ended up assigned a bed with a biological boy.
Lindsay Dotko, Jeffco Kids First, on the show last hour to talk about all the horrible things happening in Jeffco schools. They want to be, the government wants to investigate them. The Department of Education who asked the district to simply provide parental notification and offer accommodation for kids, students, so they don't end up bunking with opposite sex students or older students. Seems like common sense to me.
And then we have a week-long outdoor lab mountain trip for our 6th graders, 11-year-olds. And in Jeffco Kids First, with our 8,400 families, we have uncovered not infrequent instances of high school leaders who are 18, peers who are bunking and monitoring showers together of the opposite sex. And we have used those to file an OCR report. 100 of our families filled out the complaint form.
That was an outstanding segment by Jeff and Billy this morning. Check it out on the podcast if you didn't catch it. Homeland Security is clearing up a comment from the acting head of FEMA where he said he wasn't aware the U.S. had an official hurricane season. In a statement, DHS said despite mean-spirited attempts to falsely frame a joke as policy, there is no uncertainty about what FEMA will be doing during hurricane season. Reuters reported David Richardson made the comment during the briefing, but said it was unclear if it was meant to be taken literal or as a joke. The Rockies win 6-4 over the Marlins on Monday, and first pitch today, 4:40 in South Florida. 46 in Westminster, 47 in Lone Tree, 48 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
It's going to be rather cool, not only today, but for the next several days here along the Front Range. Highs only in the mid-50s to near 60 degrees with morning showers, scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon. Few showers, upper 40s tonight. Warming to the 60s and lower 70s Wednesday, afternoon thunderstorms. Lows 50s Wednesday night, only 60s with showers and thunderstorms again Thursday and Friday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
So, Bill spent a few years out in Los Angeles doing ministry work. Worked at Bel Air Presbyterian Church and got to know the folks in the entertainment industry. And I've always been fascinated with the industry as a business. I was never called to be an actor or anything like that.
Yeah.
But how the industry changes, how that affects us here is fascinating, too. I mean, radio's changing all the time.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I mean, Bill, the amount of pressure Bill gets to join X is hilarious. At some point, he's
it is. I get so much.
Instagram those snakes, Bill.
Yeah, it is. And the media is changing a lot. In fact, I guess we can talk about this now that there was a large country radio station that is flipping formats. That after they let everybody go yesterday morning, it was this guy's voice right here doing the rest of the day for 10 hours until they were able to start stunting and doing other stuff.
Well, on like 40 radio stations across the country.
Yeah, but the big one wasn't.
Y'all think that maybe I might be the big deal in this relationship? No. The guy whose voice is actually broadcast across the nation is Bill Thorpe.
Yeah, I was across the country yesterday, and a big one was in Nashville. So that was weird because it's a change in how advertising and marketing and entertainment has evolved, and not necessarily always for the better. And as you're going to outline, they've got an idea in Hollywood. And if you've been paying attention to some of their other ideas, this one ranks right up there with their dumbassery. So this is fun. This is really fun.
I don't know. I actually kind of see this as really cool, but check this out. So I follow producer Patrick on Instagram. He gives you insight into the actual business of the industry. For instance, major layoffs coming from Disney yesterday. The Hollywood Reporter also reporting that In Touch, Life and Style, Closer, and First for Women magazines all to shutter, lay off entire staffs. In Touch, gone. Isn't that wild? So he ran this insight into what studio execs are doing with AI. It's going to be mind-blowing.
Studios are quietly licensing their IP to AI, and it could change TV forever. Hi, it's producer Patrick bringing you the latest in the ever-evolving film and TV industry. Behind closed doors, execs have seen AI content so lifelike, they're now considering using it to extend old sitcoms. Not reboots, not remakes. We're talking new official episodes made entirely by machines. One exec told me that the next generative AI is so lifelike, the studio executives were, quote, scared of how they could no longer tell the difference between reality and an artificial creation. One company, Fable Studios, just launched Showrunner, an AI platform that lets users create entire TV episodes from a single sentence. Voice animation, dialogue, all auto-generated. That's all according to a report in VentureBeat. And with Hollywood under pressure to cut costs, some studios are now exploring whether to license old IP to AI firms to generate spin-offs, especially outsourcing nostalgia. But there's a legal gray area. The U.S. Copyright Office made it clear in February that AI-generated work isn't protected unless a human makes meaningful creative contributions. But as the tech gets better, the question isn't whether AI can bring back your favorite shows. It's whether you'll still recognize and watch them if you can't tell the difference. As always, would love to hear your thoughts.
So some of the images they show are to sitcoms like Gilligan's Island.
Yeah.
So I want you to understand this. This is not a spin-off of Gilligan's Island. This is not a remake of Gilligan's Island. This is taking the exact characters from the original Gilligan's Island, who I think have all passed away, maybe with the exception of one.
Yeah, I think they all are gone. I don't know.
Right? So a number of them are dead. Now generating entirely new episodes.
Yeah. So entirely new episodes, something you've never seen before.
New
but it would be,
storylines,
brand new.
all that stuff.
Wow.
I mean, and he uses a great word there, nostalgia, right? Because we all remember the feelings we had watching The Office, for instance, or Friends. They became almost like companions. Right, the characters did. Dwight, Jim, Pam, Joey from Friends, Ross and Rachel, all that stuff. They can now create entirely new episodes without the involvement of the characters or actors themselves. That is just crazy to me.
That is crazy. That's absolutely crazy. And I have a problem with it because of cutting out the human part of it, the human element. And I'm less convinced. Okay, here's the idea, is inside that story, my favorite part is where the guy talking says that the studio execs couldn't tell the difference. I'm not impressed by that, because I'm like, what if they're stupid? What if they don't understand nor recognize AI a lot? I mean, these are guys that are super, super, super rich. They may not necessarily be on the cutting edge of technology, nor out there looking at some of these fake videos. So their ability to discern what looks good for AI and what doesn't, I'm a little skeptical, just personally.
I'm skeptical too, because here, total confession time.
Yeah.
Okay. I grew up in a very creative family. My father, a stand-up comedian, created all those really funny Big Sur waterbeds commercials in the 90s in Colorado, 80s and 90s. The guy invented the wine on the waterbed and then jumping on the waterbed with the wine glass on the waterbed.
With the memory foam,
and then all the really funny commercials for Big Sur waterbeds. Very creative guy, okay? My brother, Second City, Groundlings, very creative, wrote for Nickelodeon, Legos, all that stuff. Does stand-up comedian, no problems at all. My mind, doesn't work that way at all. I can't even try to be funny if I tried to. Right?
So you were the weird one in the house growing up.
Well, I mean, so the way the dynamic worked out is my mother, who's very business oriented, loved my father, found him hilarious, laughed at everything he said, and was just drawn to that comedic side of him. And so at the dinner table, I would always appreciate, I just love laughing, but my brain couldn't connect with how quick they were and witty they were. So I had to do a bunch of public engagement, speaking engagement. So I went one time to ChatGPT and was like, give me 10 jokes that I might be able to utilize to get some people laughing here at a public. They were so stupid and boring. So this is where I'm kind of like having a hard time getting the leap.
Yeah.
Because with AI, you don't get creativity. There's nothing.
Yeah.
It's kind of stupid jokes. It doesn't really connect. It's kind of like, what do you call I can't even. It's like the little popsicle jokes you get at the end of a popsicle.
They're basically just dad jokes.
And they're not even like good dad jokes. They're stupid and lame. So while I'm interested in what AI could do and the idea of, and I would love to have new Friends episodes, new Office episodes, all that stuff, I personally have tried to use AI to come up with anything creative, and I've watched it fall flat nearly universally.
Now, it's really weird you bring this up. You and I talked about this off the air a couple of days ago. I ran across a study that was using artificial intelligence and actually leaning into creativity and talking about how it's used in the educational sphere. And what the problem is that more and more professors using AI to generate prompts and tests and other things, and then students are using AI to answer their prompts and their tests and everything else. So soon are we just going to have AI talking to each other and nobody's learning anything, was kind of the discussion going on. And there was an interesting study inside of a creative writing class. They separated the class into two groups. One group was allowed to use AI to write their creative assignment. The other group was prohibited from using AI to write the assignment. Now, the people that used AI got an individual better grade because it was more polished, more complete. The storyline was a little bit more thought out. Yeah, it was a better overall product. But when evaluated as a group, the independents were vastly more creative, because what they found out is while an individual assignment with those that used AI was graded higher, as a total, the stories were the same. Now, it wasn't the exact same story, but what they had is the same type of problem, the same basic antagonist and protagonist. They had the same high points and low points, even similar resolutions to their creative writing assignment, where the group that didn't use AI were all over the place. Some of the ideas were great. Some of the ideas were completely lame, but they were at the core creative. And this was the question inside of education is, if the individual assignment that is using AI is graded better, one, what's the motivation to continue to be creative? But on a larger scale, does it then teach all of us to be homogenous? Is it going to take out and eventually zap the core creativity that Jeff's dad, that Jeff's brother lean into? It will take that out because we don't have to have it, because the individual assignment that you need to score on is going to get better if you use AI, regardless of the fact that all the assignments are the same.
The other day you mentioned, and I thought this was insightful, that AI is not going to replace everything, but people who can use AI will.
Yes.
So here, I just want to play this out.
Yeah.
Writers have always, in the industry, have basically been kind of unique people that sit in coffee shops and they get together and they film little writers guilds and they just like encourage each other.
Yeah.
But you never see them past the point into production, right? So they might write the storyline, but they're not necessarily like directing cameras or coming up with lighting and all that stuff. You need a skill set. But I wonder if AI is going to take that away. Or at least take away that divide. So now a writer can actually direct what they want it to look like utilizing AI, right? So this is what I want the character now to look like. This is how I want the character to act. This is how I want the lighting to be, because you can just type it into a computer instead of actually having to build a big production rig. So would this possibly give the creative types and the writers almost like penultimate power in the creative opportunities?
This is a perfect example of why this show works. This is you could boil it all down, because I see it 180 degrees away from it. What I see is that the people in charge, the producer, the director, don't need the writers because they can run it through the AI. I need a story that is just passable enough, and then I'll tell the story well.
Episode or season like 20 of Walking Dead, where nothing happens,
nothing at all,
but we just run away from zombies more.
Yeah, in fact, my kids told me that if you go and watch the new Minecraft movie, one of my kids described it as slop. And I'm like, what do you mean? You mean it wasn't? And he said, no. It's basically there's no real storyline, and it's just, oh, you want to see this YouTuber? Here, have it. You want to have this reference for the game? Here, have it. You want to see Chicken Jockey? Here, have it. You want to have this viral moment? Here, have it. And it was just a series of viral moments and things that played to the community without an actual purpose, storyline, or even what you would consider a lot of creativity. It was just moments. And so they felt it was a series of like 60-second to 2-minute shorts that were just strung together.
Have you ever watched your kids watch YouTube shorts?
Yes, yeah.
Some of it is just like random. I'll give you an example I watched the other day. It was a clip from a video game where they were driving cars, and it was cycling through types of cars to see if you could get around a truck before another car hits you head on.
Yeah, that's
so
all
it was a Dodge Charger, no crash. A Tesla Cybertruck, no crash. A Corvette, yes, barely gets by. I said, there's like no story to it.
No,
like you're literally watching a car trying to get around another car and a series of testing.
Yeah, just videos.
And then I've seen these too where it's like an animated car driving into a wall.
Yes.
And they increase the speed of it
over
the course of like a minute. And that was the entire video. And it has like 300,000 views.
I know. So, is there any creativity on the other side? Is it just these kind of prompts? And would you watch some of these older shows coming back? Because I still say that many times writing and compelling characterization can do a lot for a show that will make up for even poor acting and even poor directing. But I don't think that good acting and good directing can overcome poor creativity in many ends. But I think that's where Hollywood is going. Hollywood wants to get the writers out of the equation. They want to figure out a way to continue without them because the writers are the pain. The writers are the ones like, no, you can't do that to my character, and you don't understand the character's motivation is. With AI doesn't complain. AI will let you do whatever you want to their characters.
So how's this going to change? What TV sitcoms would you like to see come back now that AI could literally continue on sitcoms where the actors are dead? And maybe even more importantly, what sitcom would you never like to see come back ever, even if they brought in AI? Bill, I have one. Do you have one?
Oh, the one.
I wonder if it's the same one.
Yeah, what? Okay, what now?
The
are you
most
doing
disappointed ending of all time.
Yes, so the one, and this is one you would not want to come back.
Ever.
You want to see it come back?
Never see come back.
Okay, I got a couple I would not want to see come back. I have an idea. Who would you not want to see?
All right, do you want to say it on the count of three?
Okay, I think so.
All right, 1, 2, 3. Lost.
Yes, absolutely. We didn't even plan that. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Nobody wants to see Lost come back because that was such a betrayal.
Yes, it
there
was.
There was stuff that they never summed up.
Yeah.
Just totally random stuff about that they never tidied up.
No.
Have all these loose ends, and even if it was AI, I don't want to see that. That's like a form of like punishment to the industry.
Yeah. The other one that I would put on there
what you did to us
would be MASH. And the only reason I wouldn't want to come back is because for MASH it was an ending to the story. It was the ending of the Korean War. And that tied up a bow, and it was the right moment. It was the right time emotionally, and they told the story because you'd hope that all wars end. And it was the idea that this community that had been created and thrown together in horrible times and having to deal with all these tragedies, how they continue to maintain their humanity, and now it's done. And it's over. It was a beautiful way to end the series, but you can make so much money bringing it back. Yeah, I'd be worried that would be one they would try to bring back just because they can squeeze more blood out of the turnip.
All right, join the conversation. Is AI going to bring back these old sitcoms? Are you looking forward to it? Are there some in particular you'd really love to see? Maybe some that had a really short run that you'd like to come back, some additional episodes? You don't even need the actors anymore, let alone writers.
Yeah, what's your favorite sitcom? Would you watch new episodes? If they dropped new episodes here in a couple of months, but they were all done with AI, would you go back and watch that favorite show?
And which ones would you never want to see again, ever?
I wonder if my mom would watch Hill Street Blues. I grew up watching that with them, literally sitting on the floor in the living room while my mom and dad are behind me in their chairs, watching that with them. And so, we'll go back and watch it.
Sitcoms like Price is Right come back too.
Oh,
game shows with Bob Barker.
Yes, bring Bob back. Although I could could bring back Chuck Woolery. There may be something there.
Give us a call. Phone lines are open 303-696-1971 or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line at 720-819-5115 720-819-5115. Maybe they'd like to replace us with AI. All right, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Can't believe you just said that. This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's because I saw Bill and I are talking wild changes happening in Hollywood. So Keith came by just a second ago. Keith works here.
Yeah.
And this dude is the master of AI, man. He's like a ninja.
Yes, he is.
And he is in our sales and marketing department. And what he does is everything's, he's like, I want to have this conversation with Cora. Is that fine? He never surprises you and that.
No.
And he's like, yeah, sure. And then he, like, within 5 minutes of the conversation, he's like divulged like what it's all about. Boiled it down.
Summarize it. Look at the high
summarizes
points.
it. This is where we need to go. And he's like, sometimes I miss things because I'm listening, and my mind goes somewhere, and I might miss a line or something. This dude is a ninja when it comes to it, and it's transforming our office. So AI is changing everything. Yeah, and we bring that up because there's articles and social media is starting to talk about how studios are going to now take AI to bring back your old beloved sitcoms, not with reruns, not with, like new actors.
Yeah.
The old actors, many of whom might be dead.
Because you can replicate their voices now.
You can replicate their voices, their activities, and then script out entire storylines that were never explored in the segments.
Like, would you watch the new season of Gilligan's Island? What about the Mary Tyler Moore Show? Would you go back? Could you stomach another episode of Murphy Brown? I mean, that's the thing is, some of these, would you go back and watch some of these?
So, and you got to love some of the storylines that were the same every episode. They changed bad guys.
Yeah.
So, for instance, 7903, I'd watch Walker, Texas Ranger if it came back. Chuck Norris, kicking butt, never gets old.
That's one of those that I could see something with that because it's kind of that, and basically what they used to call, the bad guy of the week type of thing. The A-Team is built off of this.
Yes.
And so it's bad guy of the week.
All of Louis L'Amour's built off of this.
Yes.
I joke with my wife all the time. I read the same storyline
over and over again. Yeah.
It's young man heads west. Young man faces problem. There's a lady tied into the problem here. Defeats bad guy. Wins lady. Everyone's happy.
Yes, exactly. Same book over and over.
Story over and over again.
Just different names. And there's some of those that I would watch, but there's some that you kind of look at as far as a moment in time that wouldn't necessarily resonate. And I would say things like Seinfeld, Friends, Cheers, because of some of the cultural significance, I'm not certain it would be as successful now, bringing it back. The older ones, like Gilligan's Island, would have some novelty, but again, could it be brought back and still necessarily be relevant and or entertaining?
You know what you could just AI the crud out of? Just let this thing run.
Yeah, what?
The Hallmark series.
Oh, God, yes.
Speaking of the same story,
Jennifer Love Hewitt starring the same movie. Yeah.
It's the same story.
It is.
And they even make fun of it on social media. It's like Uptown Girl returns home, finds out that there's a local hardware store that's fallen on rough times. And helps save it. Falls in love with the owner of the hardware store that they knew in high school but hadn't talked to in 20 years. Lo and behold, everyone. Dude, you could just, if I was Hallmark, Bill.
Oh, yeah.
That's like a gold mine. Because nobody cares who the characters are.
No, not at
There's
all.
no connection to the characters.
Tell the story.
It's the same story over and it's feel good. It's the same thing for Guys and Louis L'Amour. You just pump that stuff out. I mean, hours of it, episode after episode, and you can make a fortune.
Oh, yeah, you could. Some of the other ones I would love to see them be able to lean into, and this is kind of weird, but be able to lean into some of the older cartoons that I think you could come back and... But
Wile E. Coyote,
yeah, you could do some
Bugs
old Bugs
Bunny.
Bunny, because I, after Mel Blanc passed away, they tried to redo it, but the voice just wasn't the same.
Yeah.
And the sense of timing and sarcasm inside of Mel Blanc's characters wasn't the same. You could tell that it was someone else. And that kind of bothered me when they'd bring back things like Muppet Babies. Again, bothered me because it wasn't necessarily the same. If you could replicate some of those cartoon shows, if you can go back and go like OG Voltron, okay, you may have me there. You get Robotech rolling again, okay,
Dude, it's all
I still
gonna
watch Gundam.
change.
Yeah.
To Andrew's point, next 3 to 5 years, we're going to see a shift that unlike anything we've ever imagined with AI.
It is. I got someone there. Yeah, Maude. Old Maude episodes.
He wants
Murder,
Maude
She Wrote.
Murder,
She Wrote would be awesome. I'm sorry. Okay, I am
Angela Lansbury, right? Was that
Yes,
her?
Angela Lansbury.
Yes.
I am not a fan of bringing back the AI stuff, but you give me a season of AI Angela Lansbury's Murder, She Wrote. Yeah. However, I'm torn on things like Matlock because Kathy Bates is in a reboot of Matlock, and they've changed the character, but they've done kind of the same story. And I do like that approach if it hits. But you also have this continuation that is a problem. A recent series of Frasier, where they tried to reboot Frasier. They brought it back, and the thing was atrocious. It was
did they?
horrible.
The reboot?
Yes.
But wouldn't it
was
be nice to
horrible.
see some of those actresses come back at their younger selves as well?
Or at least just continue, the same type of storyline. Again, it can't carry it on forever. But, and this is one of the problem, though, and this is when I'm talking about the idea of, do the storylines narratively fit? One of the problems with, in my opinion, with the reboot of Frasier was that the really rich guy not understanding what the poors are going through doesn't hit the same as it did back then.
Yeah, right.
Because of the change in the economy. Frasier, he didn't understand his erudite ways, and he would make mistakes that way, where in the new version, he comes off looking like a jerk. He comes off looking like a pompous a-hole at times because of his obtuseness with the average person.
When they try to do these reboots, though, I think part of the problem is, especially if you were younger, you fell in love with characters and they don't look the same way, right?
No.
This is just natural aging. I'm not blaming it,
Yeah.
but Wonder Years or Full House or Friends, right? They try to do a reboot and you're like, Joey's got gray hair.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, no. Joey was 25 years old, and it was, how you doing? Nobody wants to see a 50-year-old do how you doing.
No, not at all.
It was funnier when it was 25. And so these reboots, I never got into the Full House because I was just like, Stephanie in my mind was 12, and I was 12, and the girl from Wonder Years, Winnie.
Oh, Winnie, yeah.
Winnie, right?
Winnie Cooper.
Winnie was in my mind, or Topanga. They were all these, they were all my age.
Yeah.
And so when you try to see a reboot, it's like trying to fit a square peg into a circle. I want to go back to what it was like, when...
Here's the crazy thing. So
they were that age.
I love the fact that you brought up Topanga because I love that one.
Right.
Because I didn't know at the time... I have, and I still have it. It's a bike that I have kept for, God, the thing's got to be almost 25, 30 years old now. But it's an old Diamondback, and it's a Diamondback Topanga. That's the name. That is the name. So it has the name on the bicycle frame. And I used to have people stop me and go, dude, how'd you get the bike named after her? And I'm like, that's not what the bike's named after. But I hung on to that for years simply because of that. It's still hanging in the garage.
So do the reboots not connect? Maybe the AI can bring back the reboots. So Chandler... You're not making any more Friends episodes with Chandler.
No, you can't.
He's not alive.
Yeah.
And then he went through the weird drug stuff, too.
Yeah.
So then once you know it and you go back and watch Friends, you're like, ugh. You could tell when he was either on pills or alcohol. It wasn't good. But those early days with Chandler... you could actually bring those back, and that would be fun to watch, as opposed to drugged up Chandler.
Now, what does this do if you're thinking of being a theater performer? I've got some people in my lives that are performers and some that are going through school and chasing. I've got one friend from college whose son is in New York in an amazing theater program. Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
But what does this do? Because in theory, if we do this with AI, in the future, does he sign a contract to perform for one episode as one character and signs away his look and his rights in perpetuity, where they can then take that performance and then just recreate him through AI forever, and he gets pennies on the dollar. And where I pulled that example from is in music.
Yeah, streaming.
We used to have, we used to release albums and then tour to support them. Now, bands are releasing albums to tour because you don't make any money off an album release. Yeah, could it change that? That'd be kind of scary.
Interesting. Joan from Lakewood would like to see the Tick back.
Oh, I love the Tick. Spoon! Love the Tick. Oh, the Tick's fantastic.
Speaking of bringing things back, Bill, if you're losing your hair and you want to bring it back, well, we've got the simple solution for you. Advanced hair restoration, modern technology with top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration from the experience itself to their unmatched results. You got receding hairline, bald spot, or thinning hair. Address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments. And get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It starts with your free consultation. Call 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with the team that's redefined hair restoration, 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. AI, bringing back those old sitcoms you loved with brand new episodes with actors that are no longer living. Wild. And what does this mean for the future? We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. It's going to get rainy here the next few days. Tuesday, rain in the mornings. Afternoon thunderstorms coming. Only a high of 59 today. Wednesday, scattered thunderstorms gets up to 70. Thursday, scattered thunderstorms 68. Friday, scattered storms 72. And then Saturday and Sunday getting warmer. 79 on Saturday. Sunday, 82 and dry. Could try out a little bit nice after yesterday.
Yeah, it was wet yesterday. Jeez.
And, last night till this morning. So, also reminder, we only got a few more days to get your Kyle's Karen's T-shirts.
Yes, these are limited edition.
You get a T-shirt. You get a T-shirt. You get a T-shirt.
And they're only going to be sold until this Friday. After this Friday, they go away forever because the company that we are having work with us on this does not want to be held responsible nor associated with us anymore.
Dude, this guy steals our content, doesn't give us any attribution. He has no room to get angry at us for making T-shirts.
It's ridiculous.
And making fun of him.
Yeah, and what Jeff's talking about is yesterday, Kyle Clark over on Next used some of the video when Danielle Jurinsky, Aurora City Councilwoman, was on the air with us and talked about how Danielle went after some of the other liberal Democrat Jewish lawmakers in the state and the horrible things that she said and didn't say that he said them here. Nothing. And I'm sorry, but inside, and this ticks me off. I'm not necessarily him personally, but inside of journalism and also inside the industry, attribution is vitally important. Understand that when Kyle was doing the bit about Danielle and what she was saying, he didn't tell you the source. He didn't bother to give source attribution. That's one of the core tenets inside of journalism. So if that's your thing, have we got a T-shirt for you? But if you don't like your news served up with feelings and you're more the facts kind of person, we've got a T-shirt for you. See, we're not just poking fun at him, but anybody can have their own T-shirt because this is Colorado. It is time to decide.
We like to make money off of both sides.
Yes, we do. So go to kyleskarens.com, kyleskarens.com. Check out the T-shirts. They are appropriately colored, and you can either be a part of Kyle's Karens or not, based on your selection of T-shirt. Why Kyle's Karens? Because Jeff put up a poll on his Twitter account, because I refuse to say X, on his Twitter account, I repeat that, about what we should call Kyle's fans, because every time we mention, especially Jeff on social media, they mention anything about Next, Channel 9, or Kyle Clark, he gets inundated with a whole lot of people telling him what a horrible person he is, but those are Kyle's fans. That's okay. Taylor Swift has the Swifties.
They love him,
They
man.
do. And Justin
Bieber
Bieber has the
cute.
Believers.
That's why.
Oh, he's got great hair. I can't. I'm jealous of that.
He must have visited Advanced Hair.
He does. He has amazing hair. He's got that anchor hair. I don't know what that's up with that. Is it like a store you go to get that stuff or something? But anyway, he wears sports coats all the time. Everything else. Sports coats. It's a nice job there. But on the T-shirt, you have the outline of a sport coat lapel, and then proudly says, "I am either a member of Kyle's Karens or I am not." There may be something else extra on the side of the sport coat, but we're not going to mention that because of liability issues. So just take a look. Go to visit us at kyleskarens.com, kyleskarens.com. But this is a one shot only. These are only up for 3 weeks, and that comes to an end this Friday. After that, all the silk screens and everything else are going to be destroyed so that the company doing this for us can't be held liable. So, yeah, this is one shot. After that, they are gone. And so far, we have sold one that is a proud member of Kyle's Karens. One blue T-shirt. Everybody else is buying the red. So, I'm just saying.
I'm going to go just carpet bomb his comment section.
I'm telling you.
With links.
You really should. And the other part is I'm half tempted to go out there and get the blue T-shirt only because there's going to be 2 printed total.
That's
2.
it.
And that's the idea, is then there's no more. And here's the reason for that is I have a sweatshirt, a hoodie at home. It's a gray hoodie, but embroidered on there are call letters for another radio station. They only made 8 of those. None of the rest of them exist. I have a KOA Sports Radio T-shirt, the old school logo at home. They only printed 10, and I've got one of 10. They never printed any others, and I've got a Colorado Rockies KOA hat from the All-Star game that they printed 20 of. Total. No others were made. It's a one-shot deal. So the idea of having one of 2?
Limited edition.
Yeah, that
Kyle's
really,
Karen shirts.
God, never wear it, but I'd throw it in there. I mean, I held on to my Dave's Bake Sale in a shirt from here at KNUS for years and years and years. So that's the kind of thing that I do. So I'm tempted, but do I need to buy a blue one? I don't know. I'm going to have to make that decision later this week.
Breadman texted in, AI TV is going to be brought to you by the same consultants that outsourced all of America's manufacturing factory.
Yes,
Bring
that
back
is true.
Roy Rogers,
Yes.
says Breadman.
Oh, there we go. That'd be a good one.
Would be fun.
Yeah, do some of those old school ones. Go and bring back the Shadow of the Green Hornet. It'd be cool.
Well, Charlie Kirk's up next. If you missed any of the Jeff and Bill show, we covered a lot of topics, including being joined by Jeff Crank and Lindsay Dotko. All the latest on this attack that took place in Boulder. Go to 710knus.com to download the podcast you've been listening to, The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is KNUS.